Chapter 825. The atmosphere at the scene was a little stifling, as if a single spark could set the entire place ablaze. When the women present saw such men looking at each other, they were a little sad. They really wished that they could sit opposite them and be looked at like this. Furthermore, he was afraid that if they looked at each other like this, they would suddenly do something crazy. That would be really scary. Just like a sudden kiss, Yihua looked at the plain sculpture. Su Diao looked at Yihua. Yihua didn't expect that this man would actually be able to act normal under my gaze. If it were his subordinates, they would have lowered their heads long ago, not daring to look him in the eye. However, this man could actually hold on for so long. He was indeed amazing. Su Diao's current performance caused Yihua to be a bit surprised. After all, it was hard to find a strong opponent, and for such a strong opponent to suddenly appear, Yihua was quite interested in him. Recently, my luck is really quite good. Not only is it a maid, but it's also a powerful opponent. Please give me a dozen of such opponents. You are just playing with me. You don't have the qualifications. Today, let me test your strength. At this time, Su Diao was also very shocked. Although this man had not released any do qi, he still exuded a sense of oppression. He really was a very powerful man. Seeing the fighting spirit in his opponent's eyes, Su Diao's heart was also filled with fighting spirit. Only such an opponent would be interesting. What was the point of fighting with a woman? In fact, Su Diao didn't want to fight with women. In his heart, only men were worthy of fighting on the battlefield. Yihua and Su Diao could be seen making their moves. The women at the scene let out a shriek, then couldn't help but cover their mouths. What are we doing? On the wooden table, both of them stretched out their right hands at the same time and held each other tightly. To be able to understand each other's thoughts just by communicating with their eyes, as expected of an expert. This was everyone's guess. This was arm wrestling. Yihua looked at Su Diao with a profound gaze, and while Su Diao's gaze was as calm as water, the waves in his heart were still very big. This man was so strong. He couldn't move it at all. Meanwhile, Yihua was also very shocked in his heart. My strength is actually unable to move it. The two of them seemed to be useless, but they were already exerting their strength, wanting to bring each other down. Adding on the fact that there wasn't much expression on their faces, this made everyone feel that they were only shaking hands, or perhaps they were only thinking, touch the other party's palm, what an evil pair of men. Back mountain. The arm wrestling continued. If someone were to look closely, they would see that their elbows did not touch the table. Even their postures were very normal. I really should respect you. You are very strong. Su Diao said lightly. He had never lost to anyone in terms of strength, but today he was unexpectedly unable to put down his opponent. In terms of strength, Yihua felt that only Yizizi was stronger than him. However, this man was actually more or less the same as him. This is truly unimaginable and hard to believe. Both of them released their hands at the same time. Yihua said faintly, since you respect me, then join my group. You will be able to obtain better development. I'm sorry, but I still can't agree to your request. I also won't join any team. Su Diao was just that willful. He spoke those words from his heart. Seems like there's no other way to compete like this, why don't we change it to something else? Yihua said faintly. Arm wrestling was unable to prove anything, only actual combat could prove one's worth. Su Diao's fighting spirit was also aroused, and he didn't reject Yihua's proposal. After reaching an agreement, the two of them walked out of the tavern and gradually disappeared into the streets. Two such good-looking men were gone. All the women sighed. Such men could only be found in the sky. Therefore, as long as a man was good-looking, he would similarly be able to enjoy that kind of stunning gazes. Right now, Yi Hua and Su Diao had already left Azure Dragon Empire and were standing on a piece of land that had already dried up. A light breeze was blowing at the dust, and of course, Su Diao's silver hair was also blowing at the dust. Since you aren't willing to join my group, I reckon that you have already joined another group, right? Yi Hua asked lightly. I forgot, I am just a guardian. Regarding guardians, Yi Hua still didn't know about them. After all, he wasn't present at the scene, and similarly, he also hadn't heard of guardians. What are you guarding? I don't know. Then, what do you know? Yi Hua asked gravely. A guardian is already so powerful, then wouldn't the thing that he is guarding, or his boss, be even more powerful? Thinking up to here, Yi Hua seemed to have another thought. Su Diao said lightly, I don't know anything. Meeting a powerhouse that doesn't know anything is indeed a bit of a headache. Then, what are you planning to do? I want to go to the place that I want to go. This answer made Yi Hua slightly satisfied. At least, I have a destination. Yi Hua could be seen taking out a piece of jade and throwing it to Su Diao. Su Diao caught the piece of jade and revealed a puzzled look in his eyes. If you come across something that you can't handle, crush it, I can come over and help you. Yi Hua said faintly. Rather than saying that he was going to help, it would be better to say that he was going over to take a look at what this guardian was guarding. Su Diao paused for a moment, then kept the piece of jade and said, if there is a need for that. Don't think too much, I still have to test your skills. If not, even if you crush it, I still won't appear. Yi Hua said gravely. Su Diao waved the black spear in his hand and locked his gaze onto Yi Hua, then, let me see your strength. Yi Hua snorted lightly, then a set of white armor instantly condensed on his body, and his silver spear appeared in his hand. The white armor emitted a bright and resplendent light, seemingly wanting to illuminate the entire night sky. Meanwhile, the silver spear in Yi Hua's hand emitted a dazzling golden light, and there seemed to be golden electric currents that were connected to the spear from the ground. You are indeed stronger than your wife. Su Diao said gravely while looking at Yi Hua, who was in such a state. The silver spear in Yi Hua's hand pierced straight into the sky, and a huge whirlpool could be seen appearing in the sky. Boom! A golden shield could be seen falling down from the whirlpool, and Yi Hua grabbed onto the shield with his left hand. They are just kind-hearted, that's all. Yi Hua slightly narrowed his eyes, and his battle intent was already surging out. Su Diao slightly bowed his body and said, I know. The two stared at each other once again, and their bodies shot out explosively. The silver spear and black spear collided with each other, and at this moment, the entire world seemed to have become silent. The terrifying battle chi turned into astral winds and swept all over the place. The sky rumbled, and lightning flashed. However, only the heavens were the spectators of this battle. After an unknown amount of time, the two men seemed to have stopped fighting. Yi Hua's face was brimming with comfort, as if he had done a rather refreshing warm-up exercise. This Su Diao is indeed a good sparring partner, my subordinates don't dare to go all out and fight with me anymore. You are truly very strong, I am not your opponent. Su Diao said lightly. While smoking, Yi Hua said indifferently, are you trying to flatter me? No, I am just lamenting. End of this chapter. Chapter 8:26. After throwing away the cigarette butt, Yi Hua said lightly, my promise to you remains unchanged. Crush the jade piece and I will count it as your sparring fee. After finished speaking, Yi Hua disappeared. Su Diao stood on the spot for a moment, then walked towards a direction with a gloomy expression. This Su Diao is truly a mysterious man. Yi Hua appeared at the entrance of one residence again and slowly walked towards it. He seemed to be in a good mood. In the garden, the four women were waiting for him. Wan Yi wasn't there. Master, you are back. When Daji saw that her master had returned, she hurriedly bowed down and shouted. Yihua walked to the side and patted Daji's head. Get up. Being patted on the head by her master, Daji became shy. Thank you, master. Where did you go? Qinya asked curiously. Yihua yawned. Nothing much, I just went out for a walk. You fought, right? Donghuang Baiji smiled lightly. I really can't hide anything from them. It was quite a comfortable fight. Yihua sat beside Qin Yutong and pinched her cheeks. Seems like she doesn't want to admit defeat. Brother-in-law, did you kill that person? Qin Yutong asked curiously. Daji knelt at the side and listened while making tea. Master is very powerful. Yihua shook his head. Yihua's attitude made the women very curious. To actually not kill that person, this is simply a miracle. I let him go. Why? This isn't your style. Qinya asked puzzledly. I let him go just so that the future will be more exciting. How would you all understand? Yihua took the tea that Daji brewed and lightly blew on it. Not bad. Donghuang Baiji snorted. You are amazing, we are just a foil to you. Your Majesty is a bit angry today, let me console you later. Go and die, who needs your consolation? Donghuang Baiji said shyly. Daji is still here. At this moment, Wani ran over. Brother ? The room is ready. Alright, you go and sleep first. After Wani left, Yihua directly hugged onto Qinya and Donghuang Baiji's waist. What are you doing? Qinya said angrily. I just complained about him tonight, and he is indeed like this. I am sleeping, what else can I do? You can continue sleeping. Donghuang Baiji hurriedly said. Yihua laughed lightly. You all still don't know, right? I have a helper now. Yutong, help your big sister push her but later. Alright, Qin Yutong bounced over, and with a look of I am brother-in-law's little accomplice, Qin Yutong said. Qin Yutong. You dare. Qinya shouted out shyly. On the other hand, Qin Yutong was very open about it. Big sister, you are the one who pushed me, your little sister, to brother-in-law. You should have already thought about such a day long ago. You. While Yihua was laughing heartily, a man and 3 women walked into the room. As for what was going to happen, any normal person should be able to guess it. After all, this was the dream of every man. Daji stood outside and slowly closed the door. Then, she stood at the door and waited on Daji while thinking to herself, when will I be able to, what am I thinking? Master's body is priceless, and I'm just a maid. How can I sully Master's body? This is too wrong. Not long after, a low moan could be heard coming from the room. Daji bit her lip and set up a barrier. It was fine for her to listen to such a voice. Forget about others. However, if one were to listen to such a sound for a long time, it would also cause fatal damage to Daji. She was almost unable to stand still. On this day, the sun was shining brightly in the Azure Dragon Empire. However, after a night of devastation, the entire imperial palace had been reduced to rubble. I heard that when Emperor Gu Pai woke up and saw that his imperial palace had become like this, he was immediately angered to death. With the death of the emperor, the entire Azure Dragon Empire sank into grief and indignation. After all, the one who died was their emperor and not someone else. When Crown Prince Gu Haoran heard this news, he almost jumped out of his seat. He was definitely going to be the emperor. In one residence, Yihua sat on the side of the bed and massaged his neck. Last night was really tough. It was my first time trying to fly 3 times, and I felt a little sore in my waist. I turned around and looked at the bed. He saw 3 breathtakingly beautiful women sleeping soundly with deep satisfaction on their lips. Seeing that his woman was satisfied, Yihua also felt a sense of accomplishment. A man should let his woman be satisfied. Master, are you awake? Daji, who was outside the door, heard the voice and asked carefully. Okay, get me some water to wash my face. Okay, master. After putting on his clothes, Yihua did a set of radio calisthenics and felt much better. This set of radio calisthenics is something that I have to do frequently. It will be able to train my waist to become straight. After all, the three women on the bed are not to be trifled with. Not long later, Daji carried the water and placed it on the shelf, then stood respectfully at the side to serve Yihua. The corners of Daji's eyes couldn't help but look towards the bed. Of course, I also saw the madams. Even when sleeping, the madams would reveal a smile. The madams should be very happy. My master is very strong in all aspects. Let's go out for a walk and eat breakfast. Yihua said faintly. What about the madams? They won't wake up so quickly. Yihua was confident in his own battle strength. I reckon that the madams will only wake up at noon. Yihua directly brought Daji out of the house. Daji still wore a veil. After all, her appearance would still cause unnecessary trouble, and her master was a kind-hearted person who wouldn't kill anyone. While walking on the street, Yihua heard the conversations of the people. The emperor actually died. This is a bit unexpected. The important thing is that the emperor died from anger. This is rather shocking. The emperor seemed to have died from anger due to the people from 3 Absolute Palace. Do you guys think that the people from 3 Absolute Palace will come? Or perhaps it is the people from King Ren prison. I don't know. I heard that prison warden Chu disappeared last night, and 3 Absolute Palaces Hua Yang doesn't seem to admit what happened last night. There is such a thing. That Hua Yang actually doesn't admit that he was the one who destroyed the imperial palace. That's right, the emperor was indirectly angered to death by him. This 3 Absolute Palace is too arrogant, they are actually so lawless. Who asked them to be 3 Absolute Palace? Angering an emperor to death is a piece of cake for them. However, there must be justice, right? Justice. Strength is justice. If you don't have strength, then just obediently lower your head and don't speak. Listening to the conversations around him, Yihua continued to look for breakfast. This 3 Absolute Palace and King Ren prison shouldn't be here for the man from last night. The appearance of the man from last night should be an accident. They are definitely here for something else. This is a bit interesting. Just what are these 2 big powers looking for? Based on my previous opinion, they should be looking for techniques or weapons. In any case, they should be looking for things that are beneficial to me. End of this chapter. Chapter 827. Walking on the street for a while, Yihua didn't find anything delicious to eat. If I had known earlier, I would have brought that fellow blood demon along with me. After all, only blood demon would be able to make different flavors. Or perhaps it was the soup dumplings, or steamed dumplings, or even the seaweed soup with chicken sauce. Just thinking about it makes me salivate. That's right, Daji, do you know how to make breakfast? Yihua had forgotten that there was a maid behind him. Daji was very happy to finally hear her master's instructions. Master, Daji will make breakfast. Master can eat whatever you want. Oh, do you know how to make pancakes? The kind with eggs and ham. Daji was stunned when she heard her master's words. He had learned all kinds of knowledge and skills in order to serve his master. However, he didn't understand his master's request at all. Even less so. Shame. A wave of shame spread in Daji's heart, and the eyes under the veil were crying. Master, Daji actually doesn't know how to do what you said. Master, please grant me death. Daji no longer has the face-to-face master. Yihua, this Daji was good at everything, but she was too serious. How big of a deal was it? Don't keep on dying. If you don't understand, just learn well. Master won't blame you. Yi Hua said faintly. He patted on Daji's head and continued walking forward. Daji stared blankly at her master's back view. Master actually didn't blame me, and even consoled me. My God, why do I have such a good master? This is truly a gift from the heavens to me. Furthermore, just now, Master patted on my head again, and even told me to learn. At that moment, Daji secretly swore in her heart that she would definitely learn everything and serve her master well. When her master asked her next time, she would be able to answer happily. He knew everything. After calming herself down, Daji jogged to catch up with her master and followed behind him respectfully. She looked up at her master's broad shoulders and imposing back. At a small stall, Feng Yun was eating porridge, but at this moment, he had a ferocious expression on his face. They had heard everything that they had just said. His orange card Daji actually begged his new master to grant him death. The reason was that he didn't know how to make a stuffed jianbing. She really is a stinking whore, licking up to that man. Wait until I, Feng Yun, become strong, I'll definitely teach you a lesson. That's not right. Fruit jianbing. How did this man know about pancakes? And you even added eggs and ham, could it be? Feng Yun's mouth gaped open slightly. Could it be that this man was the same as himself? He was also someone who had been reborn. If that was the case, then it made sense. He definitely has a system on him as well, and he must have used the system to interfere with my own system. Otherwise, why would the countdown timer that was supposed to be a few hours turned into 1 minute? He must definitely be playing tricks on me. He had destroyed his own system and made Daji acknowledge him as her master. This man was so hateful. If he didn't take revenge, he wouldn't be a gentleman. Don't think that I won't kill you just because we're from the same hometown. Sure enough, it was just like the saying, when fellow countrymen meet fellow countrymen, there are 2 knives in the back. However, Feng Yun was also wondering why he wasn't the only one who had been reborn. Could it be that there were many people like him in the Kangluo continent? This didn't make sense, right? Group crossing. If that was the case, he would have to be careful. System, come out and explain to me. Are there many systems like yours? Feng Yun asked in a deep voice, as if he had never asked such a question before. Master, of course there are many systems. What? Why didn't you say so earlier? Feng Yun said angrily. If he had said it earlier, he would have been more vigilant. How could such a thing have happened? Master, you didn't ask. Feng Yun felt that he would be angered to death by the system sooner or later, just like the emperor. Explain it to me. Feng Yun asked in a deep voice. Master, the system will screen out the host and give the host the benefits, thereby fulfilling the host's wishes. What about you? What kind of system are you? Is there a level distinction? Feng Yun asked. Master, the system has no level distinction, but there are versions. The higher the upgraded version, the more powerful it will be. In the system world, there is only one system that has been upgraded to the highest version. It is the benchmark of our system world. When the system said this, it had infinite admiration. Feng Yun also felt heavy after listening to it. There was actually a highest version. It couldn't be that man, right? Do you know who the host is? Master, these are all confidential. What about you, what version are you now? Master, I am now in version 2.0, version 2.0. Feng Yun felt that it was okay, at least not the original version like 1.0. What is the highest version? Feng Yun asked curiously. That is the ultimate hybrid version 9.0, the system said with excitement. However, as the master, Feng Yun wasn't excited at all. Ultimate hybrid version 9.0. 0. F asterisk CK. What is the use of it? You can use the items in the shop as you wish, you don't have to pay any price. This time, Feng Yun was excited. You can use it as you wish, you don't have to pay any price. If that's the case, wouldn't I be able to draw 10 times in a row? I don't have to be afraid of not being able to draw orange cards anymore, there's nothing that I can't do by rushing to 648. Feng Yun asked excitedly, then, how can I upgrade to that level? Master, I am currently in version 2. 0. After upgrading, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced max. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After upgrading again, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. Finally, I will be enhanced version 2. 0. After hearing this, Feng Yun felt that there was no peak in life anymore. There was no climax anymore. Then, how did other people manage to get to the ultimate hybrid version 9? 0. Feng Yun didn't understand. Why is this the case? Master, there is a rumor in the system world. It is said that the system hugged onto someone powerful, and that's why the system directly adjusted it to the highest level. The system said in a low voice. Feng Yun widened his eyes and said in horror, F asterisk CK. In the end, is it this system that is hugging onto someone powerful, or is it your system world that is hugging onto someone powerful? I don't know about that. Master, it is better for you to hurry up and nurture the card, take it slowly. F asterisk CK. Feng Yun didn't know what to say anymore. He could only use F asterisk CK to express his current feelings. Even the system world is so realistic, and I still want to hug onto someone powerful. This is simply refreshing my worldview, this is too inhumane. Looking at the white card that I summoned out, it is still a child right now, and it's still dripping with snot. My God. I really want to die. Master, I am not full yet. The little fellow looked towards its master pitifully. Just like how if you don't give me food to eat, I will cry, Feng Yun was in despair. Other than knowing how to eat, what else can you do? End of chapter. Chapter 828. Other people are the female servants of the Supreme of the Law of the Heavens, and I don't even have any chi, and I only know how to eat. What's the use of eating? Master, don't be discouraged. The loyalty that is cultivated to you from a young age is very high. If you had cultivated Daji from a young age, things wouldn't have become like this. Right now, Daji has already been removed from the card pool, and you can no longer draw her. Hearing the system's words, Feng Yun wanted to cry but had no tears. Because cultivating in the system was very cheap, I didn't summon Daji back then. If I had summoned Daji back then, after so many years, Daji's words would have been directed at me and not some other man. Just thinking about it makes me angry. The benefit of cultivating is that it can become an orange card. The strength that can be summoned directly is fixed. Therefore, Feng Yun plans to cultivate one. After doing some missions, he can earn some points and draw 10 times in a row. Getting a purple card is not bad either. Yihua strolled around outside, and all he saw were steamed buns and meat buns. If not, he would be eating breakfast. I, the Supreme Overlord, don't have the habit of eating breakfast. Soon after, Yihua bought a meat bun, and he almost vomited. This meat is really meat, no seasoning at all, it's so hard. Also, How did you need the flour? This is too boring. If I were to open a breakfast shop here, I would be able to earn a lot. Wonton, steamed dumplings, soup dumplings, fried dough sticks, and so on. I reckon that I can even open a chain store here and sell them all over the Kanglo continent. It's a pity that I am not interested in money. Dodgy, let's go back and let the madams go and make breakfast. Yihua gave up on looking for breakfast. Dodgy had a look of shame on her face. Master, Dodgy will properly learn how to cook in the future. Learn more from the madams. Dodgy is ashamed. Yihua laughed lightly, then brought Dodgy back to Wan residence. Right now, Wan Yi was eating breakfast. He was actually eating. Big brother ? Do you want to come and eat? Wan Yi smiled and greeted. Actually, Wan Yi was the same. The breakfast outside was truly terrible, so he had no choice but to eat. After that, he got used to it. Yihua said faintly, not eating. After finished speaking, he prepared to wake his wife up. Wan Yi pursed his lips. Brother ? Was really aloof. It seemed like he should learn from him. He heard that aloof Prince Charming was more popular. Yihua walked into the room, and Dodgy stood outside and waited respectfully. My mood is not good. Other than master and madam, no one is to come and provoke me. If not, I, Dodgy, will flip out. After walking into the room, Yihua looked towards the bed. The three women did not seem to have the slightest bit of intention to get up. Yihua looked towards Qin Yutong, who was actually still snuggling up to her big sister like a child, while Dong Wang Baiji was leaning on Qinya's fragrant shoulder. The two women surrounded Qinya. Yihua sat on the bed and looked at the three faces on the bed. It had to be said, even after looking at the three faces for a few years, I still have the feeling that my heart is moved. Even I, the Supreme Overlord, have been seduced by them, let alone other men. These three women are truly making me worried to death. Qinya, wake up. Yihua pinched onto Qinya's face, and the latter wrinkled her brows, then moved her face away from Yihua's face. Yihua seemed to be saying, I haven't slept enough yet, please don't disturb me, I also have a temper when I wake up. Seeing that Qinya was unable to sleep, Yihua could only pinch Dong Wang Baiji. The latter was the same. After moving a bit, she went back to sleep. It seemed like Yutong was the only one left. Yutong, wake up. After Yihua shouted out, he felt that something was wrong. Yutong doesn't know how to cook at all, and if she were to cook, that would be poison. Brother-in-law, don't mess around. You have already stayed up all night, you are so tired. Qin Yutong hugged onto her big sister tightly. Even if you beat me to death, I won't get up. I, the Supreme Overlord, stayed up all night, aren't you two still enjoying yourselves? Just who is the one who is tired? Yihua directly lifted off the blanket, and an exceptionally beautiful scene appeared. It seemed like this was the first time that the Supreme Overlord had seen such a scene, and he was a little unable to shift his gaze away from the scene. The three women on the bed could be seen opening their eyes, and three deathly gazes looked towards Yihua. Ouch! I, the Supreme Overlord, went through so much trouble to let you three feel comfortable, and I even woke you three up, and I even gave you three meaningful gazes. Do you believe that I, the Supreme Overlord, am going to domestic abuse you three? Although Yihua was thinking like this, he still covered the three alluring bodies with the blanket. Women like these cannot even be looked at as thin air, and only I, the Supreme Overlord, am able to admire them. Whoever looks at them will die, not even fantasizing about them is allowed. After Yihua covered himself with the blanket, the three beautiful wives glared at Yihua. At least you are sensible. Wives, I'm hungry. Yihua said gravely. To be able to say a sentence of acting coquettishly in such a stiff manner, I reckon that there is only Yihua. I seem to have asked Yihua to act coquettishly twice, but that was to coax my wives. Thinking about how I act coquettishly, Yihua felt like vomiting. This is too disgusting. If you are hungry, then go and eat. Qingye mumbled. The food outside is not delicious, and I am not used to the breakfast here. Furthermore, the blood demon is not by my side, so only you and Baiji know how to cook. Then, don't you know how to learn how to cook? Why do you always want us to cook? Donghuang Baiji said petulantly. Ordering my women all sorts of things, and then acting like a man. Yihua was very unconvinced, and he planned to properly reason with them. As a man, learning how to cook is so embarrassing. Furthermore, you are my wives, so cooking for me, your husbands, is only right and proper. Other people's husbands even cook for their wives. Look at you, you haven't even cooked once. Qingye snorted and said. Other people's husbands dote on their wives. Just look at that Do Fusher and Yi Hong. They are not like you, scolding people for no reason, not doing things right here, not doing things right there, not even sleeping properly. Hearing that, Yihua became angry and said gravely, then go and be someone else's wife. After finished speaking, Yihua threw a tantrum and walked out of the room. To actually say that other people's husbands are good, I am simply angered to death. As expected, after hearing what Yihua said, the three women on the bed immediately opened their beautiful eyes. Before they even had the chance to explain, Yihua slammed the door and walked out of the room. Qingye held on to her forehead, feeling both angry and funny at the same time. He is already so old, yet he is still acting like a child. Big sister, you made brother-in-law angry. Qing Yutong poked her big sister. Donghuang Baiji said helplessly, Qingye, don't you know about Yihua's temper? He is petty, and he is also the king of jealousy. Sigh, I was wrong, alright. The two of you are both helping him, aren't the two of you good sisters who share weal and woe together? Especially you, Qing Yutong, just what did you do last night? Is there anyone who messes around like you? Qing Yutong laughed, didn't I make the two of you feel comfortable? Big sister, you didn't reject me at all. Qingye's face turned red. Thinking back to the absurdity of what happened last night, she felt drunk. I never would have thought that serving a man together with my little sister would be so passionate. I'm not going to talk nonsense with you anymore, I still have to go and coax that angry man. Qingye sat up. What a beautiful scene. End of chapter. Chapter 829. The three women didn't want to stay in bed anymore and got up. Yutong, go and coax him. Baiji and I will go and cook. Alright, leave it to me. Right now, Yihua was sitting in a pavilion and drinking the tea that Daji brewed. He was filled with anger. To actually say that another man is better than me. F*ck me. Go and find a man to spar with. I, the Supreme Overlord, will smash him with a single punch. Just thinking about it is making me furious. Master, don't be angry. Madam didn't mean to say that. Daji quickly pleaded for her. What, you also came to plead for leniency? Yihua asked coldly. Daji immediately lowered her head. I wouldn't dare. Master, don't misunderstand me. Yihua did not say anything and lowered his head to drink his tea. Soon after, he saw Qing Yutong appearing with a fawning smile on her face. Brother-in-law, good morning. Qing Yutong came over, then gave Qing Yutong a sweet kiss. Yihua did not say anything, indicating that he was very angry. Just a kiss is enough to settle it. That was impossible. Looking at her brother-in-law who was angry, Qing Yutong felt that it was funny. Qing Yutong was acting like a child. Brother-in-law, Qing Yutong held on to Yihua's hands and said coquettishly. Speak human language. Yihua said gravely. Sister asked me to come and apologize to you. She didn't mean it that way. Brother-in-law, don't be angry. Then why didn't she come over herself? Sister and Sister Baiji are making breakfast for you, so they asked me to come over. Hearing that the ladies were having breakfast, Daji hurriedly said, Master, I'll go and help. I can also learn. There's no need to trouble the ladies in the future. Go. Yihua said faintly. After Daji left, Qing Yutong said in a low voice, Brother-in-law, you are still angry. How can I not be angry? How dare you say that I'm inferior to other men? How am I inferior? Big sister really didn't mean that. Brother-in-law, you are bullying big sister too much. Just now, big sister almost cried because of you. Big sister gave birth to a child for you. It's so hard. I just complained a little and you got angry. Hearing that, Yihua paused for a moment and didn't say anything. When Qing Yutong saw that her brother-in-law was not speaking, she said tenderly, Seeing that you are angry, big sister will agree to one of your requests. Request? What is the requirement? Yihua asked curiously. What other request could there be? It's just the three of us doing that. Qing Yutong's eyebrows twitched and said, You should understand. Yihua instantly understood. The three of us doing it together is indeed very pleasurable. That's more like it. Yihua instantly forgave her. Not long later, Qingye and Donghuang Baiji appeared with the dumplings and chili sauce in their hands, and respectfully placed the dumplings onto the stone table. Then, he stood at the side without sitting down. Hubby, I was wrong. Qingye said tenderly, expressing that she wouldn't say it again in the future. Sit, let's eat together. Yihua said faintly, expressing his magnanimity. However, Qingye felt that it was inconceivable. When did Yihua become so easy to talk to? Just what did my little sister say and he became like this? Qingye immediately looked at Qing Yutong, and Qing Yutong immediately looked away. Sister, don't blame me. It's all for your own good. If you don't do something, how can brother-in-law forgive you? Daji, come over and eat some as well. Donghuang Baiji called out tenderly. Daji stood at the side and said respectfully, Madam, I'll just stand at the side and serve you. Eat something later. Madam asked you to sit, so just sit. Yihua said faintly. Since her master had already spoken, Daji chose to sit down. Because Daji knew that her master basically didn't joke around. She mustn't let her master repeat what he said a second time, if not, her master would get angry. This taste is still the most comfortable. Yihua had a comfortable look on his face as he ate the dumplings. Master, Daji has learned how to cook. In the future, Daji will cook and let the madams have a good rest. Hearing this, Yihua felt very comfortable, learn more from Daji. The three women pouted their mouths. Are we going to be your wife or are we going to be your maid? Yihua suddenly approached Qingye and asked in a low voice, Is what Yutong said true? And what is it? Qingye had a puzzled look on her face. Yihua immediately frowned and became a little unhappy. It's that matter, I mentioned it to you yesterday night. Qingye immediately recalled what it was about. Yutong said that both you and Baiji agreed to it, you wouldn't be lying, right? If that's the case, I will continue to be angry, the kind that can't be coaxed. Qingye felt that just how did I end up with such a husband, to actually be able to threaten others like this? Today, I was caught by him as well, this is truly infuriating. Is what Yutong said true? That's right. It's true, alright. Qingye said petulantly. My life is finished just like this. After hearing what Qingye said, Yihua laughed out loud and kissed onto Qingye's cheek. Donghuang Baiji had a puzzled look on her face. What happened? I don't seem to know anything, shouldn't you tell me something? Just as Yihua was laughing out loud, a loud sound rang out in the entire Azure Dragon Empire. Dong, dong, dong. This was the sound of a bell. This represented that the emperor had passed away, and the entire Azure Dragon Empire had sunk into sorrow. What's going on? Is there a war? Qin Yutong asked curiously, and there wasn't a single bit of worry on her face. Yihua picked up the dumpling, dipped it into the chili sauce, then said faintly, "The emperor passed away." After hearing what Yihua said, Qin Yutong went into a daze for a moment, then cried out in surprise, "Didn't I say that the emperor would definitely be angered to death?" Qin Ye and Dong Huang Baizhi were very surprised as well. An emperor that died from anger, isn't the amount of pressure he could endure a little too low? Although the other party was the emperor, the Azure Dragon Empire had always been peaceful. Seeing the empire of his ancestors being destroyed in his own hands, how could he not be angered to death? Then, the new emperor is definitely that crown prince. Dong Huang Baizhi said faintly. If it isn't that crown prince, who else could it be? However, after destroying the imperial palace, I wonder if that 3 absolute palace will come out to help us. Qingye rolled her eyes at Yihua. I have really suffered a huge loss today, and there's still Qin Yutong, this accomplice. If I had known that this would happen, I wouldn't have sent myself into Yihua's embrace and teamed up with Yihua. After eating the dumpling, Yihua laughed lightly. This King Ren prison and 3 absolute palace will definitely come, because they have yet to obtain the thing that they want. After hearing what Yihua said, the women were all puzzled. Master, wasn't the seal that King Ren prison and 3 absolute palace wanted yesterday? Daji asked curiously. With their strength, how is it possible for them to discover such a seal? Even if they discovered the seal, the people that came over wouldn't be some little brats, they were only there to scout the situation. Brother-in-law, then what do they want? Qin Yutong wanted to know as well. If it was something that could be fought over, it would definitely be something good. You will know after you take a look. Yihua said lightly as he focused on eating the dumpling. After all, one had to be focused when eating. At this moment, inside the abandoned imperial palace, everyone was wearing white gowns and wearing mourning scarves, and they were all crying while facing a huge coffin. End of this chapter. Chapter 830. Especially Gu Haoran, who was lying beside the coffin, his cries could even change the color of the sky. Father, why did you die just like that? I haven't given birth to any children yet, you haven't found a crown princess for me yet, father. I can't live without you. Although Zhang Jing, who was standing below, was choking with sobs, it was all fake. The crown prince finally ascended to the throne, thank the heavens. As for Gu Cha, who was a prince, his eyes were red and swollen. It wasn't because he was sad, but because he was angered. How did father die from anger? And that crown prince ascended to the throne just like that. This is truly hateful. It's all because of him. Gu Cha looked towards Hua Yang, who was not far away. This damned 3 despair palace. If he hadn't destroyed the imperial palace, father wouldn't have died from anger. No. It's those 4 women. One of the women asked them to fight, causing this situation. This was all Gu Haoran's fault. If it wasn't for him calling the women over, Chu Yuxuan wouldn't have fought with Hua Yang. This Gu Haoran, you are so scheming, knowing that father loves the palace, you called people over to sow discord, and in the end, angering father to death, then you become the emperor yourself. What a good scheme. As expected of my big brother. However, Gu Haoran didn't even think about this, it was completely an accident. Beside the luxurious coffin, all of the emperor's wives cried even more fiercely, but it wasn't because they were sad or sorrowful, it was a kind of despair. Because they were going to be buried with the emperor, other than the empress, everyone else was going to be buried together. Although Hua Yang, who was standing at the side, was the main culprit, no one dared to say anything, because behind him was the enormous 3 despair palace. But right now, Hua Yang was also very unhappy. Although no one dared to touch him, everyone's eyes were filled with disgust, as if he did it on purpose. But what happened last night? I didn't do it on purpose at all. Chu Yuxuan dodged the first 2 attacks. If he didn't dodge, the palace wouldn't have been destroyed, right? This is not Chu Yuxuan's problem. What does it have to do with me? Also, I don't know what happened after that. When I woke up, I was thrown into the ruins by a woman and fainted. But those 4 women seemed to be very powerful. They were not as simple as he had imagined. Could it be that they were also here for this thing? If that was the case, then it would be a bit troublesome. The news had really been leaked, and he had to inform his master immediately. In the first place, his master did not intend to mobilize so many people. He did not want others to find out that there was something good in the Azure Dragon Empire. Thus, he sent him over to retrieve it. The benevolent king prison should be the same. They all wanted this treasure. But after last night's battle, Chu Yuxuan was nowhere to be found. Could he be dead? Chu Yuxuan wouldn't die. Long Outyen had already saved him. He was lying in one of the thatched huts, his body covered in white bandages. His chest was moving up and down. In the main hall of the thatched cottage, Death Assassin, Long Outyen, and Meng Meng were sitting together and discussing something. Death Assassin has now learned sign language. For example, walk. Every time Death Assassin did this action, Meng Meng would become a little shy. Don't misunderstand, Death Assassin is very pure. Right now, I am worried that this man will attract enemies, and by then, we will be implicated. Long Outyen was a lot more mature now. He was not as frivolous as before. He was a real man now. Meng Meng hugged onto her son who was sleeping soundly and did not say anything. Death Assassin's task was to look after Long Outyen, so wherever Long Outyen went, he would follow. Death Assassin could be seen pointing towards the door, then stretching out 2 fingers and moving it. Meng Meng immediately lowered her head, because her husband often did this. Long Outyen understood. Master, you are saying to wait for this person to wake up before making a decision. Death Assassin nodded his head. Lying on the wooden bed, Chu Yuxuan slowly opened his eyes, thinking to himself that I am not dead yet. After sizing up the room and the bandages on my body, I reckoned that I was saved by someone. Luckily, my luck is great. Chu Yuxuan sat up with difficulty. He felt as if his body was going to split apart. Thinking back to last night's situation, his heart was still cold. If I was a bit slower, I reckoned that I would have to report to hell. That damned Hua Yang, to actually beat me up while being possessed by a ghost, I will remember this debt. Chu Yuxuan stood up and slowly walked towards the door. Soon after, he opened the door and immediately saw the person at the table. And the person at the table looked over as well. Chu Yuxuan's face gradually became gloomy as he shouted out in a deep voice, "Undead. You finally woke up." Long Outyen stood up and said with a smile. He did not notice Chu Yuxuan's strange expression, and thought that Chu Yuxuan was only surprised at Death Assassin. In Kangluo continent, all of the humans did not have any goodwill towards other races. Their hatred had reached the pinnacle. Even children knew that only when all the other races were completely wiped out, would the world be at peace. Chu Yuxuan was the same. He did not have any goodwill towards other races, especially the undead. Their entire form was bad. Therefore, a blade immediately condensed in Chu Yuxuan's hand, and with a loud bang, he slashed towards Death Assassin, causing Long Outyen and Meng Meng to be stupefied. The wind created by the blade was like ice, but to Death Assassin, it was nothing. Death Assassin could be seen stretching out 2 of its bone fingers and directly clamped onto the blade. Chu Yuxuan was stupefied. Undead are all inferior races. Why is it able to clamp onto my blade? This is impossible. It must be because I am injured. That's why I was unable to chop onto it properly. It must be like this. If I have the ability, let me chop onto it again. Chu Yuxuan exerted all of his strength to pull out the blade, but those two bone fingers seemed like, as if they were trained, they clamped onto the blade tightly. Clang! The crisp sound of a blade suddenly rang out. Chu Yuxuan's blade could be seen to have actually been clamped into two. Towards Death Assassin's strength, Long Outyin understood it very well, that was the rhythm of Death Assassin's strength. However, right now, Chu Yuxuan found it hard to believe, he even felt that he had not woken up yet, that he was definitely dreaming. How is it possible for an undead to be so powerful? Suddenly, Chu Yuxuan recalled the matter that happened a few years ago. At that time, it was said that a group of people appeared in the south. The one leading the group was an undead. That undead was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. That undead also had a group of subordinates. All of them were those kind of high-level perverts. They killed anyone they saw, slaughtered cities they saw. In any case, wherever they passed by, basically not even a blade of grass would grow. However, it was said that all of the overlords joined hands and killed that undead. Furthermore, it was reported to the entire Kangluo continent, letting the other races know the consequences of angering humans, death without a burial ground. All of them died. Then who is this skeleton? Why is it so powerful? Chu Yuxuan retreated continuously, and with an astonished gaze, he looked at Death Assassin, and a terrifying thought emerged in his mind. Could it be that that undead didn't die? End of this chapter. Chapter 831. Is it the one in front of me? Chu Yuxuan didn't even think much, he immediately turned around and jumped out of the window, while Death Assassin had already disappeared and appeared in front of Chu Yuxuan. Looking at the undead who was still in the room just a moment ago and instantly appeared in front of him, Chu Yuxuan started sweating. My luck has always been good. Am I going to die the first time? No, even if I die, I have to give it my all. After thinking about it, Chu Yuxuan took out his blade and slashed at the undead. Death Assassin wasn't an ordinary person. Although he was an assassin, he wouldn't lose in a head-on confrontation. Facing Chu Yuxuan, who was full of openings, Death Assassin stretched out his leg and gave a kick, directly kicking Chu Yuxuan back to his original position. Chu Yuxuan fell under the wooden table like a salted fish, while Death Assassin's figure flashed and returned back to his seat. After being kicked by Death Assassin, Chu Yuxuan felt that all his internal organs were displaced. This fellow is definitely that skeleton from back then. I must definitely bring this news back, that evil skeleton is back. But the problem now is, how am I going to bring this news back? Seems like I can only compromise and find an opportunity to talk about it. I will first pretend to faint and see what is going on. Who are you? Long Outyin asked gravely, not knowing that Chu Yuxuan was pretending to faint. Chu Yuxuan, who was under the table, heard it, but he didn't speak. I will pretend to faint. Hearing that Chu Yuxuan didn't speak, Long Outyin immediately slammed onto the table. Although the slap wasn't heavy, it still caused the boiling hot teapot on the table to fall. The boiling water that was just finished falling onto the back of Chu Yuxuan's hand. Ah! Chu Yuxuan couldn't help but shout out in pain. This group of people is indeed fierce. They are definitely those people from back then. To actually be so vicious to a person who fainted, as expected of the place where not even a blade of grass grows. After standing up, Chu Yuxuan held on to the back of his red hand. Then, where am I? Who am I? Long Outyin, did this guy lose his memory? Long Outyin asked curiously, you don't remember who you are? Me? Who am I? Do you know who I am? Chu Yuxuan's acting was not bad. It was very penetrating. Meng Meng, who was at the side, became curious and asked, then why did you attack just now? Chu Yuxuan looked at the undead at the side and discovered that the undead didn't seem to have the intention to kill him. But now it was time to explain. My cousin was killed by the undead. So, when I saw it, I couldn't help but take action, Chu Yuxuan said sorrowfully. After hearing that, Meng Meng became even more curious. Didn't you just say that you don't remember anything? F***ck. Was this woman here to ruin his plans? Maybe it's because it's too painful to remember. Chu Yuxuan tried his best to explain. He felt like he could get away with it. Meng Meng murmured, "That's really miserable. Hubby, don't you know how to use acupuncture? Do you have the kind to treat amnesia? Needle technique?" Chu Yuxuan was a little confused. Long Outyin nodded. "I do have a treatment for amnesia, but I've never used it before, so I'm a little rusty." Never used it before. And a little rusty. Forget it, this is very dangerous. Amnesia is actually quite good, you guys don't have to be so enthusiastic. Long Outyin heaved a deep sigh. He had to try his best. Swoosh, Long Outyin unrolled a roll of red tape. On the roll of red tape, there were many long silver needles. Some were thick, some were thin, some were long, some were short. Looking at these needles, Chu Yuxuan was a little scared. Looking at this person's age, do you know how to use acupuncture? Actually, I feel that. I don't need it for the time being, don't you guys think so? Chu Yuxuan pretended to be very happy. Long Outyin said gravely, "Since I've already started to save you, I will help you recover. You are heavily injured. If your memory is lost due to the extermination of your family, I have to help you recover your memory." F***ck, these people are indeed vicious. If my family is really exterminated, how sorrowful would that be, and you guys actually want me to recover that painful memory, this is simply a loss of morals. No, this brother, I appreciate your good intentions, but if my family is really exterminated, I don't want to remember that kind of scene. Just let it disappear. Chu Yuxuan felt that there was nothing wrong with what Long Outyin said. As long as it was someone with a heart of negotiation, they wouldn't reject it. However, Meng Meng said, "How can we do that, if you forget, who is going to take revenge for your family? Therefore, you still have to recover your memory. And what my wife said is right, only with a deep hatred and hatred will you be able to pull yourself together again, train hard, and then find your enemy to take revenge." F***ck. What I said seems to be very correct, how am I supposed to refute it? I am someone who loves peace, I don't like fighting and killing, after all, when will there be an end to revenge? I killed my enemy, and my enemy's people came to find me for revenge, why bother? Chu Yuxuan felt that there was nothing wrong with what he said. Upon hearing that, Meng Meng was very unhappy and said, "How can we do that? Your family was killed, if you don't take revenge, what kind of man are you? What you are doing is unfilial and disloyal." Long Outyin felt that what his wife said was right, and couldn't help but nod his head. How can a man be like this? Even Death Assassin nodded his head. The hatred and hatred of my family being exterminated is absolutely irreconcilable, how can I say that I won't take revenge? Chu Yuxuan panicked, what they said doesn't seem to be wrong, what should I do, what should I say? Maybe it isn't this kind of hatred, maybe it was because I accidentally went overboard while training, that's why I ended up with injuries all over my body. Chu Yuxuan panicked just by looking at the needle. I am definitely going to be pricked to death. Meng Meng laughed tenderly and said, "That's why you have to recover your memory, only then will you know what happened." F***ck, what this woman said seems to be very reasonable, how am I supposed to solve it? Long Outyin could be seen standing up and pressing Chu Yuxuan onto the chair, while Chu Yuxuan had a face of unwillingness. A red light flashed past Death Assassin's eyes, and this gave Chu Yuxuan a fright. Meanwhile, Long Outyin took out a silver needle. What can Chu Yuxuan do? I am heavily injured, and I am unable to run away. Furthermore, I still have such confidential information, I definitely have to escort this information out. However, I can't let this newbie prick this needle on me, what if I end up getting injured? This, brother, don't be nervous, don't move your head, it won't hurt. Long Outyin pressed onto Chu Yuxuan's head and warned. This Gongzi, don't you need to disinfect your head? Chu Yuxuan seemed to have already accepted his fate. As long as I bring this information out, I can do anything. Long Outyin went into a daze for a moment. Don't worry, I have already disinfected my head 5 years ago, and I have never used it. Chu Yuxuan, 5 years ago. Disinfect. You haven't used a needle for 5 years, do you think that I can't tell? Bastard. Long Outyin looked for an acupuncture point, then said gravely, this won't do, it has been too long since I used it, I have to shave my head. End of this chapter. Chapter 832. Chu Yuxuan's long hair was still very elegant, but when he heard that he was going to shave his head, he was simply unable to remain calm. His handsomeness depended on his beautiful hair. I can tolerate other things, but this hair. I definitely cannot shave it. Before Chu Yuxuan could even react, he saw his beautiful hair falling onto his body. Long Outyin held onto the knife and said gravely, this brother, I am doing this for your own good, don't move recklessly, you might injure your scalp. To actually dare to threaten me. If my scalp is injured, you will probably cut off my head. These evil people, I will *king endure it, wait until I return to the benevolent king prison, I will definitely expose your horrible crimes and let the entire Kangluo continent despise your actions. Not long later, the handsome Chu Yuxuan's head became a braised egg. Needless to say, there was another kind of handsome feeling. Alright, I am going to start, don't worry, it won't hurt. Long Outyin picked up a silver needle. Before Chu Yuxuan finished speaking, he felt his head go numb. *king say it won't hurt, could it be that I am having an orgasm? Liar. These people are not only evil people, they are also liars. Long Outyin hurriedly apologized, sorry, I inserted it wrongly, I will start again. After speaking, Long Outyin pulled out the needle again, and a stream of blood could be seen spurting out. Death Assassin and Meng Meng were both stupefied. Meanwhile, Chu Yuxuan felt a pain in his head again, not knowing why, he had a bad premonition. Why are they looking at me like this? Brother, don't worry, this time I will definitely pierce it. Chu Yuxuan felt a bit dizzy, are you trying to kill me? Pierce it, if you pierce it, I will really die. These people are too vicious. Gradually, Chu Yuxuan felt his head becoming blurry, and the braised egg's head was already filled with silver needles, making him look like a hedgehog. Long Outyan's head was also filled with sweat as he said, this technique will definitely work, you guys don't have to worry. Saying that, Long Outyan was full of confidence. Although he had not used it for a long time, he still vaguely remembered it, vaguely. It shouldn't be wrong. Hubby, you won't injure him, right? Meng Meng asked worriedly. Long Outyan pursed his lips and said gravely, since he has already lost his memory, let's just give it a try. Meng Meng nodded. This man is so pitiful. He's bleeding because of his husband. After a long time, Chu Yuxuan slowly opened his eyes. Everyone immediately looked at Chu Yuxuan's condition. Chu Yuxuan looked at the 3 people in front of him with a perplexed gaze, then shouted towards Death Assassin, outsiders, watch my blade. Long Outyan knocked Chu Yuxuan unconscious, then said in a low voice, looks like his cousin's death was a huge blow to him. He still remembers it. Yeah. Meng Meng also sighed. Long Outyan carried Chu Yuxuan to the room to rest. It seemed that his acupuncture technique was correct. Chu Yuxuan's memory had recovered. Chu Yuxuan was unconscious on the bed, and only woke up after a long time. Yihua opened his eyes and looked at this familiar house, then immediately mumbled, where is this place, who am I, why does this place feel so familiar, my head hurts so much. Chu Yuxuan sat up and shook his head, I definitely hit my head, why can't I remember anything? However, from this familiar house, I can tell that this should be my home. Chu Yuxuan could be seen opening the door to the room and seeing Long Outyin and Meng Meng. Could these be my parents? They look so young. The one in my mother's embrace is definitely my little brother, so cute, and the one at the side, those are undead. They are definitely the undead that father captured. It must be like this. The few people outside looked towards Chu Yuxuan with curiosity in their eyes. Did he recover his memory? Chu Yuxuan could be seen directly kneeling on the ground and shouting, "Father! Mother! I have made you all worried." The air seemed to have become quiet. Long Outyin and Meng Meng were stupefied. When did I have such a big son? Could this be his memory? That's King terrifying. In actuality, Chu Yuxuan didn't lose his memory, and Long Outyin's acupuncture technique was used to treat memory loss. In the end, Chu Yuxuan lost all of his memory, to the point that he even forgot who he was. If Chu Yuxuan knew that this was the result of pretending to have amnesia, he would definitely regret it to the point that his intestines would turn green. Seeing that his parents weren't speaking, Chu Yuxuan thought that his parents were still angry. "Father, mother, I must have been mischievous and fell on my head." 10,000 words floated out from Long Outyin's heart. "You didn't fall on your head and hurt it, you got pricked. Hubby, look, I told you that you would hurt other people," Meng Meng said petulantly. Long Outyin felt very embarrassed as well. He walked over to Chu Yuxuan's side and helped Chu Yuxuan up. Father, Long Outyin, I'm sorry, I made a mistake just now. Come over, I will prick you again." "Father. I already know my mistake, Father, please don't prick me anymore, Father, please forgive me for my carelessness." I was careless." Long Outyin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Is this a memory recovery needle or an amnesia needle? Chu Yuxuan hurriedly said, "Father, you weren't careless, it's my son. It's me. It's your son. It's your father. It's your son. It's your son then." Meng Meng shouted out coquettishly, "Hubby, what are you saying, calling yourself your father? Wife, I was led astray by this child, you really can't blame me." Long Outyin was also very gloomy. "Mother, please don't scold father anymore, it's all your son's fault." Meng Meng could be seen pulling Long Outyin to one side and said softly, "Hubby, I feel that you should practice properly. If you were to prick someone else to death later on, it would not be good." "Then, what should we do now?" Long Outyin asked. "Sigh, this person is quite pitiful, he definitely lacks love, how about we put up with him for now?" Meng Meng suggested. Long Outyin took a deep breath. Seems like saving someone is not an easy thing to do. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. This is also accumulating merit for our son. Meng Meng smiled slightly, feeling that this was a good thing. Since his wife had agreed, Long Outyin nodded his head. However, right now, he had to practice his acupuncture technique properly, and when the time comes, he would be able to directly recover his son's memory. Returning back to the house, Long Outyin looked at his son, who was kneeling on the ground. Long Outyin and Meng Meng were both very helpless. Meanwhile, Death Assassin appeared to be very calm. "Get up," Long Outyin said faintly. Chu Yuxuan slowly stood up, then walked to Meng Meng's side. "Wow, little brother is so cute." Long Outyin, what the **CK is this? I have another son, and furthermore, he even has a stewed egg hairstyle. Is there anyone here? Woof, woof, woof. Just when Long Outyin was feeling helpless, a questioning voice rang out from outside the door, and a dog's bark could be heard as well. End of this chapter. Chapter 833. The 4 people in the room were stunned. This was especially true for Long Outyin and Meng Meng. This place was beautiful and the environment was very good. However, ever since he came here, he had only met his eldest son. He had never met anyone else. Today, someone had actually come. What a surprise. Long Outyin was still very vigilant. You guys stay in the house. I'll go out and take a look. Master, help me at any time. Death Assassin nodded. Off to the side, Chu Yuxuan was shocked. His father and master were actually undead. How was this possible? Doesn't that mean that I have to call him Grandmaster? He didn't know why, but his heart was against such a feeling. Long Outyin walked outside and looked at the wooden fence. This was a very strange person. He wore a thick cloak and was very dirty, looking like a beggar. The beard on his face was very deep and white, making him look like an old man. Meanwhile, at his side was a dog. The dog's golden fur had already curled up. The dog's body was a bit thin, but looking at the shape of the dog's face, why does it look like a golden retriever? Could it be that there were golden-haired animals in another world? This was too magical. Or could it be that he hadn't arrived at the other world at all, and was still in some corner of the earth? That's not right. Then why is my eldest son dressed like that? Is he an actor? This time, Long Outyin had guessed correctly. Chu Yuxuan was indeed acting, but he was an actor from the Kangluo continent, and an incompetent one at that. He had dug his own grave. The most tragic actor in history was born just like that. Long Outyin frowned. Where are you from? What are you doing here? The old man standing outside the fence didn't say anything. He just stared at Long Outyin. Long Outyin wondered if he had some sort of grudge against him. Why was he staring at him like that? Where are you from? Can you talk? Long Outyin asked again. And the old man finally spoke, with a trembling and hoarse voice. He said, You are Long Outyin. Long Outyin was dumbfounded when he heard what the old man said. This person actually knew him. How was that possible? Who the hell are you? Long Outyin was a little nervous. This was like a supernatural event. I am Ninth Master. The old man blurted out. Long Outyin immediately recalled Long and City's Ninth Master. You are Long and City's Ninth Master. Long Outyin was shocked. How is this possible? Am I dreaming? Weren't you the one who cured my impotence back then? After hearing Lord Zhou's words, Long Outyin believed him. He had indeed cured Lord Zhou back then. But that year, why was he the one who got beaten up in the end when he asked Lord Zhou to call over? However, Long Outyin was still very excited to see his fellow countrymen in this kind of place. Long Outyin quickly ran over, and the two men looked at each other passionately, then hugged each other fiercely. All enmity was gone. To be able to meet someone from the same hometown in a strange world, this was fate. Woof, woof, woof. The golden retriever at the side was naturally Xiao Bao. Back then, Zhou Yi had already brought Xiao Bao over. Lord Zhou, how did you get here? And how did you become like this? Long Outyin asked curiously as he let go of Lord Zhou. Lord Zhou sighed. I was mentally tired over there, so I wanted to change places and change my mood. But when I came here, I realized that I was the only person in this world. It's been a few months, and you're the first living person I've seen. Lord Zhou was indeed a little miserable. The teleportation location was very far away. To be more precise, the teleportation locations that Long Outyin and Lord Zhou had teleported to were quite remote. It was a place with very few people, so he hadn't seen anyone at all. Chu Yuxuan was the same. He was teleported to this damned place. In the past few months, Lord Zhou and Xiao Bao had been picking some wild fruits on the trees or killing some spirit beasts, so that they wouldn't starve to death outside. In any case, Lord Joe used to like watching survival in the wild, and Lord Grills still remembered the scenes of Lord Grills eating raw. Quickly come in and take a seat. Long Out Yin hurriedly greeted Jiu Yi. Jiu Yi let out a heavy sigh of relief. Thank the heavens, I finally met someone, and it's even someone I know. Meng Meng, Master, this is Lord Joe. Long Out Yin brought Lord Joe into the house and introduced him. And when Jiu Yi saw Death Assassin, he cried out in surprise, Black gown. Why was Black Robe here? How could that be? If Black Robe is here, doesn't that mean that person is here too? My God, why is that bar's owner haunting me like a ghost? I can bump into him no matter where I go. Lord Joe, wanted to hug onto that bar's thigh in the past, but I couldn't hug onto him. But forget it, Lord Joe, don't have the heart to fight for those fame and fortune, I am already indifferent to it, right now, I am just going to go sightseeing. However, Lord Joe felt that the black gown in front of him seemed a bit weird, the temperament of the black gown was different. This black gown felt a bit more steady, but that black gown was more amusing, right now, I can still remember that he was fishing. Bu. But, how did this black gown become Long Out Yin's master? This is too unimaginable. Hubby, is this Lord Joe? Father, is this Lord Joe? Father, is this Lord Joe? Long Out Yin smiled and said, This is Lord Joe, our fellow townsman. Lord Joe looked towards Chu Yuxuan. This doesn't feel right, even if this Long Out Yin has a son, this son is too big, right? That little one at the side is still considered normal. This wouldn't be a deformed child, right? The kind that develops rather quickly. Lord Joe, that eldest son of mine is an accident. Hearing Long Out Yin's words, Lord Joe seemed to be in deep thoughts. So this Long Out Yin has another son, this is understandable, who doesn't have a few illegitimate children. Fellow townsmen. What does hubby mean? It was normal for Meng Meng not to know Lord Joe, but she wouldn't have thought that this was the meaning of fellow townsmen. Lord Joe also came from our place. Long Out Yin smiled and said. His mood was very good, meeting a fellow townsman in a foreign place, luckily there was no backstabbing. This time, Meng Meng understood, hubby, you take care of them, I will go and cook now. Thank you, sister-in-law. Lord Joe smiled and said. Woof woof woof. Xiao Bao also knew how to thank now. Long Out Yin rubbed onto his son's head, call me uncle. Hello, uncle. Hello, little fellow. Lord Joe pinched onto Long Yang's face and said with a smile. Chu Yuxuan who was at the side also shouted, hello, uncle. Hearing that, Lord Joe smiled, hello. Chu Yuxuan could be seen suddenly stretching out his face. Lord Joe had a puzzled look on his face, even Long Out Yin was also puzzled. What does this eldest son mean? Lord Joe took a look at Long Out Yin. What is this eldest son of yours trying to do? Is he stretching out his face for me to slap? Long Out Yin was very puzzled. Uncle, why don't you pinch my face? Chu Yuxuan asked naively. Lord Joe, Long Out Yin, end of this chapter. Chapter 834. Lord Joe could now conclude that Long Out Yin's eldest son was indeed flawed. So bitter. Lord Joe, I'll explain it to you in the future, Long Out Yin said helplessly. He was too embarrassed to say that he had tied him up like this. I understand. Jiu Yi patted onto Long Out Yin's shoulder, expressing his consolation. This eldest son of mine seems to be suffering from polio, sigh, how pitiful. Lord Jiu had no choice but to stretch out his hand and pinch Chu Yuxuan's cheek. It was really a little weird. Doggy Long Yang seemed to like Xiao Bao. He patted Xiao Bao's head, and Xiao Bao did not resist. Chu Yuxuan also reached out to touch it, but little treasure immediately grinned. Father. Chu Yuxuan looked towards Long Outyen and shouted out. Chu Yuxuan's mental state seemed to have returned back to when he was 10 years old. Long Outyen didn't even want to say anything. It was all his fault. He hadn't used needles for too long, and he had become an idiot. In the future, he would have to stab it back, but he didn't want to die. Lord Zhou, come and sit, Long Outyen said. Lord Zhou patted Long Outyen's shoulder happily. However, when he saw the death assassin, he couldn't help but become vigilant. Is this the black robe or not? He couldn't tell at all. The entire skeleton really sent chills down his spine. Lord Zhou, this is my master. Master, this is Lord Zhou. Long Outyen introduced them to each other. Death Assassin nodded his head, then stood up and returned to the room. Long Outyen was already used to it. His master was still very cold. If he had a physical body, he would definitely be a domineering CEO who had fallen in love with him. Outyen, how did you come here? Zhou Yi curiously asked. I followed my master here. I don't know what happened either. I just came over with a bite sound. That's way too hasty. Long Outyen laughed. However, he was used to it now. After all, life was the same no matter where he was. So that's how it is, Master Zhou muttered. Lord Zhou, how did you get here? Lord Zhou sighed, I found a treasure, then I came over. Who brought that dog here? Long Outyen looked at Lil Bao, who was playing with his son. Chu Yuxuan stood to the side, looking unhappy. Why wasn't he playing with him? Yes, a friend entrusted him to me. After that, he never appeared again. Xiao Bao is the closest person to me. Lord Zhou looked at Xiao Bao with a gentle gaze. In Lord Zhou's eyes, Xiao Bao was better than other people. Long Outyen patted Lord Zhou's shoulder. Do you have any plans for the future? I don't know yet. I came here to relax. Wherever I go, I'll see the different scenery. It's too tiring over there. Lord Zhou said helplessly. He did not want to continue the days of scheming and scheming. He had enough of being a servant. It was time to be himself again. Of course, Long Outyen hoped that Lord Zhou would stay. After all, they were from the same hometown. Lord Zhou, do you want to stay? Long Outyen asked. That's exactly what I was thinking. After all, we're from the same place in this world. Long Outyen was also relieved. He shouted at his wife, Meng Meng, cook a few more dishes. Understood, husband. Meng Meng replied with a light smile. For Long Outyen to have a wife like Meng Meng, it could also be counted as a kind of fortune. However, right at this moment, the two of them felt that something was amiss. A few weak auras were flying towards their direction. Someone is coming. Lord Zhou said gravely. Long Outyen tightly wrinkled his brows. I have been here for a few months and I have not seen a single person, why did so many people suddenly appear today? At this moment, Long Outyen immediately looked towards Chu Yuxuan. Could it be that they are here to look for me? Seems like it's most likely, but I didn't expect that the peace would still be broken. Long Yang, who was playing with Xiao Bao outside, raised his head and looked towards the blue sky. Wow, so beautiful. Chu Yuxuan also looked towards the sky and mumbled, indeed very beautiful. Above the blue sky, a spotlessly white and flawless flower could be seen streaking across the horizon. Little brother, do you like it? Chu Yuxuan asked. I like it. Long Yang clapped his little hands and shouted. Brother will bring it over for you then. All right, all right. Chu Yuxuan directly rushed towards the horizon and instantly snatched the flower that was flying in the sky. The flower was in the shape of a petal, but the petal was diamond-shaped and emitted a cold feeling. Holding it in one's hand in summer, not only was it beautiful, it could also relieve the heat. Little brother, here. Chu Yuxuan smiled and stretched out his hand. Long Yang, who was only 5 years old, mischievously laughed and said, "Thank you, big brother. No need to thank me." At this time, Long Outyin walked out and saw that there was suddenly something in his son's hand. He asked doubtfully, "Young, what are you holding in your hand?" "Daddy, big brother just brought it down from the sky for me." Before he could finish his sentence, 8 people could be seen directly landing in the courtyard. Looking at their appearance, they were still considered young. They should be in their 20s. Dressed in a bright green robe, on the chest area, there was a mountain range engraved, and there was also a small, foreign word. "I didn't expect that there would actually be people in this barren land." The tone of the person who spoke was a bit arrogant. He was the boss of this group of people, called Pingde. "Senior brother, I heard from others that there should be no people in this barren land." A disciple standing behind Pingde said doubtfully. Pingde looked at the flower in Long Outyen's hand and said in a deep voice, "Whether it's true or not, today, this ice lotus is mine." Long Yang felt that his treasure was about to be robbed, so he quickly put it away. His little eyes seemed to be saying that you are all bad people. Looking at little Bao, he was no longer surprised and behaved very calmly. It seemed that he was also a golden retriever who had seen big scenes. "Who are you and why should I give it to you?" Not waiting for Long Outyen to speak, Chu Yuxuan took the lead to ask. Protecting his family was his duty. Pingde coldly snorted and pointed to the pattern on his chest. "You country bumpkins, do you know what this represents?" Everyone was very puzzled. When Long Outyen saw the word foreign, he suddenly thought of the manga Dragon Ball that he had read before. They liked to print their names on their chest. "Your surname is foreign," Long Outyen said aloud. The disciples at the back immediately held back their laughter and almost laughed out loud. Their senior brother had recently found a little beauty, and it was just a small jade vein peak. Although the beauty was still relatively small, their senior brother planned to raise her up. Thus, he tried every possible way to find this ice lotus and chased after it all the way here. Pingda's face immediately turned black and shouted angrily, as expected of a group of country bumpkins, "Do you know what this represents?" "It represents heaven." "Oh, you are called Wadian." Long Outyen suddenly realized. Pingde, pfft. A disciple at the back finally couldn't hold it in anymore and burst out laughing, but he immediately stopped laughing. "I am an outer sect disciple of Broken Vein sect. If you are sensible, then kowtow and admit your mistake, then offer the ice lotus with both hands." Broken Vein sect. Everyone was very puzzled. They didn't understand, but they felt that it was awesome. End of this chapter. Chapter 835. Jiu Yi stood out at this moment and said with a smile, "Little brother, don't be so impulsive with your words. This ice lotus is in the hands of a child. Could it be that a child can snatch it from your broken something sect?" "Presumptuous, old man. That is the broken something sect, not some broken something sect." A disciple stepped forward and shouted. Pingde sneered, "Insulting the broken something sect, all of you must die." Long Outyen and Jiu Yi were a little confused. This is completely unreasonable. He wants to kill all of us at the drop of a hat. This is even more excessive than our home. At least we can communicate with our home, but not here, we don't even have the chance to refute. Woah daddy. Long Yang seemed to be frightened as he cried and ran to Long Outyen's feet. Chu Yuxuan looked at this group of people coldly. "They actually made my little brother cry. This is a heinous crime. I can't help but want to make a move. Eldest son, bring my youngest son into the house." Long Outyen didn't even know what the other party's name was, so he could only address them like this. However, he was certain that these people weren't here to find his eldest son, but rather that ice lotus. Chu Yuxuan glared at Pingde and his group, warning them not to act recklessly. Otherwise, someone will die. Then, he brought Long Yang into the house. Pingde waved his hand, and the disciples spread out and formed a special formation. Today, I will let all of you witness the strength of the broken something sect. Pingde pulled out the sword from his waist. His strength had actually reached rank 1 Do Shi. That was so awesome. Long Outyin and Jiu Yi looked at each other. Why do these people feel that they are brainless? It seems like you are the ones who are going to be killed. However, at this moment, Death Assassin suddenly walked out from the house. When these broken something sect disciples saw Death Assassin, they were all stunned. Undead! Pengde shouted. Because of what happened back then, the undead had become the public enemy of the Kangluo continent. As long as an undead appeared, they would all be killed. Even the weakest undead would be trampled into dregs by hundreds of people. After the shock, Pingde suddenly laughed loudly. You came at the right time. I have never killed an undead before, I will break this record today. Sword formation, prepare. Ha! The sword formation formed by the 8 Do Shis was somewhat effective. A green pattern appeared on the ground, emitting an extraordinary Do Qi. The long swords in everyone's hands also emitted a green glow, and the Do Qi in their bodies completely erupted. Long Outyin and Elder Jiu were ready to fight. However, Death Assassin who was standing at the entrance slowly pulled out his dagger. Death Assassin doesn't have any good impression of humans, therefore, the Death Assassin's figure flashed, and in just half a breath's time, the Death Assassin had already returned to his original position. There was a bit of blood on the dagger of the Death Assassin, and it seemed like the Death Assassin was not satisfied. After keeping the dagger, the Death Assassin turned around and went back into the house. On the other hand, Long Outyin and Jiu Yi didn't notice the Death Assassin's actions at all as they looked at the 8 stupefied people. Holy shit! Are you guys still going to fight? Can't you move a little? Long Outyin could not help but ask. Suddenly, the necks of the 8 people turned red. Because the speed was too fast, they didn't even have time to react to the wound. Jiu Yi cried out involuntarily. Long Outyin already knew what was going on. Master must have made a move. Master is too awesome. We don't even know if Master made a move just now. Jiu Yi was very puzzled. That black gown person's weapon was a sickle, and that black gown person just now was using a dagger. Seems like they are different. Just as Jiu Yi finished speaking, the 8 people held on to their necks. However, the arteries on their necks were cut open, and even though they were holding on to their necks, blood was still flowing out from the gaps between their hands. Everyone's gaze was filled with astonishment. The 2 people in front of them didn't even move, and even the undead that was standing at the entrance didn't move as well. However, how did we get injured? Right now, Pingde found it hard to believe as he shouted out with a hoarse voice, "You guys dare to kill Meridian Break Sect's people. Meridian Break Sect will not let you guys off. They will chase you guys to the ends of the earth." After finished speaking, a black plate condensed in Pingde's hand and immediately crushed it. Afterward, he looked at the 8 people with a sinister smile. You guys, will receive the most painful death. I will be waiting for you guys over there. Pingde uttered out his final threat with difficulty as he slowly fell onto the ground. The blood that was flowing out from his necks had long dyed the green gown that he was wearing red. The 8 people twitched on the ground, and very quickly, they lost their lives. After a long while, Long Outyin said, "Jiu Yi, we seem to have offended a very powerful force. And, looking at the situation, it should be so. Just now, he seemed to have crushed the black plate, he should be trying to save us." Jiu Yi guessed, his expression was a bit grave. These people looked ordinary, but they were just some small fries. If they were to really encounter a huge organization, they would be powerless even if they wanted to. Long Outyin said gravely, Jiu Yi, it seems like we should run away, this is safer. Jiu Yi nodded his head. Right now, the only thing we can do is run away. Because we are not sure of the strength of the other party, we cannot take any risks. However, before we run away, we still have to finish our meal, right? Haha, Outyin, it has been a few years since we last met, and you have changed a lot. Long Outyin laughed loudly and said, Jiu Yi, all men will grow up. That's right, in the past, I already felt that you were a talent, and as expected, I was right. Jiu Yi must be joking, how am I a talent? Compared to teacher, I am just trash. Long Outyin was very humble. If it was the Long Outyin in the past, he would have accepted such flattery calmly, and even felt as if he was walking on air. While they were eating, in the Breaking Pulse Sect's outer courtyard's law enforcement squad, a group of men were chatting. Of course, the content of their conversation was about beauties. After all, when men gathered together, the topic was either training or women. This was how the Kangluo continent was like. Leader Mao, I heard that there is a little beauty in the Jade Pulse Peak, have you heard of her? Leader Mao, full name Mao Hao, was the leader of the Breaking Pulse Sect's outer courtyard's law enforcement squad. His strength was that of a rank 5 Do Wang, very powerful. In the outside world, a rank 5 Do Wang would be treated very well, but in the Breaking Pulse sect, a rank 5 Do Wang could only be the leader of the outer courtyard's law enforcement squad. Mao Hao laughed softly, how could I not have heard of her? The outer courtyard has gone crazy, and it has even spread to the inner courtyard. Although I did not see her in person, this kind of crazy news shows that this little beauty's appearance is indeed shocking. Leader Mao, this little beauty is not only beautiful, but she has already reached the level of a doge at the age of 6. When the time comes, she will definitely enter the inner courtyard. She might even be a good seedling for our Breaking Pulse sect. Mao Hao nodded, yes, a 6-year-old doge is indeed very powerful. I heard that she has a younger brother, who is also a little abnormal. He is only 5 years old. Do you know what happened to the female disciple of the Jade Pulse Peak? She actually peeped at other people's children bathing, and even wrote love letters to them. End of this chapter. Chapter 836. These two siblings are indeed very powerful, our sect master should have already taken a liking to them. Right now, they are just staying there to train, and when the time comes, they will directly enter the inner courtyard. Mao Hao understood the rules of Meridian Breaking Sect very well. Some abnormal people don't even need to stay in the outer courtyard and directly enter the inner courtyard to train. But I heard that a pair of siblings appeared in the Shin institution, they are also extremely abnormal, and their appearance is also rather shocking. Mao Hao raised his teacup and drank a mouthful, then said with a light smile, we will see the results 10 years later. We and the Shin institution are mortal enemies, this pair of siblings fighting against each other, it will be a bit interesting. After saying that, Mao Hao was a bit looking forward to the competition 10 years later, who exactly is stronger. Suddenly, a law enforcement member ran over and said respectfully, Leader Mao, a disciple that went out crushed the black card. Black card. Hearing this, Mao Hao's brows tightly wrinkled. Because the black card represented a possibility, that the disciple was already dead. It should have been 10 years. In the entire Meridian Breaking Sect, no disciple had ever crushed the black card, who would have thought that it would actually appear 10 years later. Who is it? Mao Hao asked curiously. It is a few disciples from the outer courtyard. Mao Hao stretched out his hand, and that law enforcement member handed over a black card to Mao Hao. After receiving the black card, Mao Hao's big hand emitted out a bit of do qi. The black card instantly lit up, and an image appeared in the air. Meridian-breaking sect's black card not only told the sect that the disciple had died, it also had the effect of recording. Although the recording time was not long, it was enough to know who killed the disciple of Meridian-breaking sect. Everyone looked at the image, very curious. Who dared to kill the disciple of Meridian-breaking sect? That person was simply tired of living. Gradually, the image appeared in everyone's eyes. A skeleton face could be seen. Looking at this face, everyone's scalp instantly went numb, and even their bodies froze. 10 years ago, it was also this face that carried out inhumane massacres in the South, causing the humans to suffer heavy losses. Fortunately, various overlords appeared, and only then did those people all die. Although the losses were very heavy, Mao Hao had seen a lot of undead's faces, although they were all the same, but this face. Mao Hao felt fear. Just like back then, just by hearing this face, I was so scared that I didn't even dare to move. Such a fast speed. Just like how I was back then, just by hearing this face, I was so scared that I didn't dare to move. Such a fast speed. Mao Hao was shocked. He couldn't even see the undead's movements. There were only two possibilities for such a powerful undead. One was that the undead from back then had not died. Otherwise, another perverted undead would appear, and the tragedy from back then would happen again. And this time, the first target was the disciples of the Broken Pulse sect. Something big had happened. Hardened Hair felt his body stiffen. He unleashed the aura of a Do Wang and dispelled the fear in his heart. Hard Hair immediately picked up the black card on the table, ran out of the door, and directly flew towards the inner courtyard. However, everyone in the room seemed to have been frozen in place. They were all frightened by the skull face. That was because the nightmare from 10 years ago was too deeply ingrained in people's hearts. If the undead were to return, it would be a disaster. It was forbidden to fly in the outer and inner courtyards, unless there was a major emergency. At this time, there were still many disciples in the outer courtyard of the Broken Pulse sect who were either training or discussing matters regarding training. However, a Do Wang aura came from all directions. All the disciples were stunned because this aura was too violent. They thought that bad people had broken into the Broken Pulse sect. However, when they saw the clothes of this person, all the disciples were relieved but also very confused. It seemed that in the inner courtyard, one could only fly like this if there was a major emergency. However, the leader of the law enforcement team was charging into the inner courtyard without any regard for his life. What was going on? Could it be that something big had happened? All the disciples watched the leader of the law enforcement team fly past and immediately began to chat. What was going on? Some of the teachers of the outer courtyard were also very confused. They hadn't seen such a situation in 10 years. They still clearly remembered that 10 years ago, the entire Broken Pulse sect was flying in the sky to convey information. Could something have happened? When Mao Hao arrived at the inner courtyard, the students of the inner courtyard were all proud and arrogant. The sudden appearance of the leader of the law enforcement team from the outer courtyard and the sudden appearance of the leader of the law enforcement team was simply too rude. Did he think that there was no one in the inner courtyard? Over 10 disciples from the inner courtyard blocked Mao Hao's path. Although you are the leader of the law enforcement team from the outer courtyard, it is unreasonable for you to fly so recklessly in the inner courtyard. One of the disciples said in a deep voice. Mao Hao looked at this group of people coldly and said, "Get out of the way. I have an urgent matter to report to the sect leader. Then you have to report to the dean of the outer courtyard first. The dean will then report to the sect leader. You are offending your superior." Mao Hao couldn't help but curse. A group of arrogant and reckless geniuses from the inner courtyard. Mao Hao shouted angrily and a strong and vigorous Do Qi suddenly erupted. It actually formed a huge wave of Do Qi in the air and instantly spread out. Although these disciples from the inner courtyard were very powerful, they were still no match for this Do Wang. They had used their status to suppress others, but they were all blown away by this wave of Do Qi. Mao Hao once again ran wildly without any regard for his life, forming a black curtain in the air. Quickly stop him. The leader of the law enforcement team from the outer courtyard is beating someone up. The leader of the law enforcement team from the outer courtyard is barging into the inner courtyard and even beating someone up. He will definitely harm the sect leader. Following these people's shouts, the entire inner courtyard was alarmed. Mao Hao's path was once again blocked. This time, the people blocking him were all experts of the Do Zone level. Mao Hao looked at this group of idiots. Don't tell me that I have to tell them that the skeleton has returned. The entire Kangluo continent will be in chaos. A group of idiots, idiots. How dare you? Mao Hao, have you really become hard? Don't you know where you are? At this moment, Mao Hao was not afraid at all. He angrily shouted, "Get out of the way. I have an urgent matter to report to the sect leader. If you continue to block me, you will not be able to bear the consequences. Mao Hao. You better be obedient. Follow me back to the main law enforcement team to explain." The one who spoke was from the law enforcement team of the inner courtyard. Behind the two law enforcement teams was the main law enforcement team. A group of idiots. Get lost. Mao Hao was going all out. With the strength of a grade 5 Do Wang, he was fighting against 7 or 8 Do Zongs. However, the disciples standing below were also very stunned. Was this leader of the law enforcement team of the outer courtyard stupid? He actually dared to provoke a Do Zong. Moreover, he was challenging a Do Zong in a group. These 7 or 8 Do Zongs were frowning tightly. Although they could defeat Mao Hao in an instant, they did not do so. They only heard a gentleman ask, "Mao Hao. If you have anything to say, you can say it. Do you have to make a fuss here? Do you know what the consequences are? F***ck the consequences. If you delay me now, you will be trampling on the safety of the Kangluo continent." End of this chapter. Chapter 837. Looking at Mao Qiong's demeanor and tone, the other Do Zongs became suspicious. If something big really happened and they were delayed, they really couldn't take responsibility. Mao Qiong. You better have a good explanation, or else your position as the leader will end. The inner court's law enforcement team leader coldly shouted. Today, he was actually scared off by a Do Wang, and 7 or 8 Do Zongs at once. If Mao Qiong didn't have something good to show, he was basically dead. You don't need to say that. Everyone move aside. Mao Qiong directly passed by the 7 or 8 Do Zongs, and they sighed in relief and hurriedly followed. On the mountain peak at the edge of the Broken Vein sect was the sect hall. Behind the sect hall was a boundless ocean. The sea water hit the bottom of the cliff, making waves that made people feel relaxed and happy. Stop! The two guards outside the sect hall coldly shouted. At a glance, these two guards had the strength of a Do Wang, as expected of the Broken Vein sect. At this time, Mao Qiong didn't dare to force his way in, and shouted loudly, "I have something to report to the sect leader. It concerns the safety of the entire Kangluo continent." Hearing Mao Qiong's words, the two guards were obviously a little surprised, because the situation was too serious. At this time, the Do Zongs also descended. The door of the sect hall was closed, and there were two people sitting inside. One was the sect leader, Chang Hen. This person had the demeanor of a middle-aged man, giving people the feeling that he was a scholar. He wore a simple white robe, and there was a gentle smile on his face, but his eyes were captivating. Because this Chang Hen was a Jizun. The person sitting below was also a middle-aged man, his body was fat, and the first impression he gave people was, a pig killer. The oil on his face was really embarrassing. If there was sunlight, it would definitely reflect light. In addition to his height of less than 160, he was simply like a meatball. But no one dared to call him a meatball, because he was also a Jizun. Today, he came to find his good friend Changhen for a chat. Changhen, I heard that 2 talented disciples appeared in your sect. Is there such a thing? Luan Yan asked while drinking a cup of high-quality spring tea. Enduring Hatred chuckled, I was wondering why you would suddenly come to my place. It turns out that you're here for someone. Brother Everlasting Hatred, you also know that I like people with extraordinary talent. Luan Yan laughed. His laughter did not match his physique. It was as if a heroic warrior had suddenly turned into a short fatty. Eternal Hatred also picked up the spring leaf tea in front of him, took a sip, and smiled without saying anything. I say, Brother Everlasting Hatred, you can't be so stingy. How about I just take one? Luan Yan began to bargain. He had planned to do this anyway. Eternal Hatred lowered the teacup, saying with a smile, why don't you go ask Deity Institution? Maybe I can give you one. Shen Institution. That heartless one. I feel uncomfortable just looking at his face. Brother Everlasting Hatred, don't be like that. Eternal Hatred said with a smile, Luan Yan, it isn't that I, Eternal Hatred, am being stingy, but I am preparing to take this pair of siblings as my final disciples. That iceberg face from Deity Institution probably has similar thoughts as well. After all, there aren't many good saplings. It's just that there aren't many good seedlings. That's why I'm sharing one with you. You'll feel less pressure too. When you need it, I'll send it over to you. How about that? Luan Yan, there's no room for discussion between siblings. You. Stingy. Especially stingy. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Luan Yan said while panting with rage. Eternal Hatred smiled and shook his head. Just how old was he already, yet he still said such words. Just as the two were conversing, Herhard's voice sounded out from outside. After the 2 supremes heard, they looked at each other. Something related to Kangluo Continent's crisis. Come in. Eternal Hatred shouted indifferently. The smile on his face gradually disappeared. The sect master had the might of a sect master. Luan Yan, who was at the side, did not plan to participate. He only wanted to hear what kind of matter could threaten the entire Kangluo continent. It was simply too fake. Do you think that it's that skeleton making a comeback? But that's impossible. Back then, even the bones were burned. Herhard, who was standing outside, heard the voice and felt joy in his heart. The guards opened the door, and Herhard hurriedly rushed in. The dozong behind also hurriedly followed, as if Herhard was going to assassinate the sect master. Sect master! Herhard shouted while kneeling. Sect master! The dozong behind also saluted. Eternal Hatred asked in a low voice, what's the matter? Shouting so loudly outside, what a scandal. Indeed, Luan Yan was here today. Seeing such a thing, he did not know what to say later. Luan Yan originally did not want to care, but he was really curious, so he asked, what is the Kangluo continent's crisis that you speak of? Is the sea going to drown Kangluo continent? Herhard said in a low voice, Sect Master, this matter is extremely important. The fewer people who know, the better. Luan Yan laughed and shook his head. He was already so scared. Eternal Hatred's face also lost face. He said in a low voice, if there's anything, report it. If there's nothing important, go to the law enforcement team to receive your punishment. Herhard had no other choice. He directly activated the black card in his hand, and a cloud rose. Everyone looked at the cloud, and gradually, an image began to appear. However, when the image really appeared, everyone was shocked. The entire sect hall was dead silent. Eternal Hatred and Luan Yen, as supremes, felt their scalps go numb when they saw this skeleton face. Their thoughts immediately returned to the battle 10 years ago. The two of them also participated in that battle. They were very clear about what this skeleton face represented. It was simply an existence that could destroy the heavens and earth. Back then, many supremes had fallen in order to kill all of them. It could be seen how powerful this group of people was. They did not expect to see it again after 10 years. Although there were many undead race in Kangluo continent, and although the shape of the face was different, it was not that different. The important thing was that the aura that this face emitted was exactly the same as the undead race back then. That arrogant demeanor, as if the people in front of it were all trash. The Dozong standing at the back was also shocked. Although they did not participate in that battle, they had heard of that world-destroying battle. It was even recorded in the history of Kangluo continent. Even now, when he was teaching his disciples, he would give an example. It was an epic ranked battle. Close the door. Eternal Hatred reacted, and shouted in a low voice. The guard standing outside did not know what was happening inside, but they still closed the door. Luan Yen directly set up a barrier, because the following conversation was indeed very important. This kid did not lie. This matter was indeed related to the safety of Kangluo continent. The Dozong standing at the back also knew that this Hard was really anxious. If such a big matter were to happen to him, he would probably be paralyzed with fear. Everyone continued to watch. After a long time, you can't afford to offend my woman. Chapter 838. This skeleton seems to be different from the previous one. Luan Yan's face was dignified after looking at it. What he meant by different must be another aspect. It's a little different. Eternal Hatred also nodded his head. However, the others were very confused. They couldn't understand what was different at all. Looking at the two supremes' expressions, it seemed that it was definitely different. Luan Yen faintly said, the skeleton of that year would never do it himself. Eternal Hatred nodded his head. It seemed that Yihua's character was really seen through by these people. Yihua basically didn't do it himself, it was all his subordinates doing the work. But the death assassin did it himself. Just by looking at this point, one could tell that it was not the skeleton of that year. But the strength of this skeleton, I'm afraid it's close to the Supremes. Eternal Hatred said in a deep voice. This was not a good thing. That year, he didn't take it seriously and made a big mistake. When did this happen? Luan Yen also thought of this and hurriedly asked. Such a threat should be killed as soon as possible. He couldn't be allowed to grow, otherwise, the things of that year would repeat themselves. Mao Chang respectfully said, Sovereign, it may have been half an hour. What? Half an hour? How can you do things? Eternal Hatred shouted angrily. Half an hour, the others might have already run away. Mao Chang was also helpless. Sovereign, I ran all the way to the inner court and was stopped several times. This inner court is too outrageous. Eternal Hatred fiercely stared at the Dozongs behind him. The latter bowed their heads and said nothing. If they knew that this was the case, they definitely wouldn't stop them. Where is it? Eternal Hatred asked in a deep voice. In the barren land. Mao Chang respectfully said. Eternal Hatred waved his hand and all the people in the hall suddenly disappeared. It didn't take long for them to arrive at the side of the hut. However, at this time, the hut had already been set on fire. When Eternal Hatred and Luan Yen saw this, their faces turned black. If the information was faster and they weren't stopped, it would be great to kill the skeleton. However, this time, they let the skeleton run away. Search for it. Turn the whole barren land upside down for me. Find this damn skeleton, and also, completely block this news. If anyone dares to leak the news, then don't blame me, the sovereign, for turning hostile. What Chang Hen did was not wrong. If this news was released, the entire southern Kangluo continent would be in an uproar. This kind of sensation was not that kind of sensation, it was a riot. It had happened in the past, and many people had died. Harry! Eternal hatred shouted in a deep voice. Master! I'll leave the search to your outer yard law enforcement team. The entire Meridian Break sect will cooperate fully. Eternal Hatred's words gave Hard Hair a lot of power. As the leader of the outer yard's law enforcement team, he could even command the inner yard. How cool would that be? Yes. Sect leader. This damned skeleton, he's really haunting me. Luan Yen murmured. Yi Hua, who was far away in the north, sneezed. Someone is definitely scolding me behind my back again. Could it be those old friends of mine? Yi Hua, you couldn't have caught a cold, right? Qinya asked with concern. Stretching out her hand, Yi Hua's forehead was slightly hot. Looking at Qinya's actions, Yi Hua shook his head. Qinya, when have you ever seen me catch a cold? Qin Yutong, who was at the side, was attracted by her own appearance and said, That's right, brother-in-law doesn't even cover himself with a quilt at night, how could he have caught a cold? Dong Wang Baiji asked confusedly, doesn't cover himself with a quilt. Qin Yutong placed down the small mirror and laughed, Big sister Baiji, did brother-in-law cover himself with a quilt when he poked you? Dong Wang Baiji's face turned red. Even though they were currently sharing a quilt with each other, the Empress was still very shy. Qinya glared at her little sister. You sure know how to shoot your mouth off. Daji, who was serving at the side, also had her face turn red. Achio! Yi Hua sneezed again. Master, are you all right? Daji asked with concern. Yi Hua felt that his head was buzzing because of that sneeze. I'm fine. Yi Hua shook his head. I feel a bit weird, I can't have really caught a cold, right? However, Qin Yutong suddenly cried out in surprise, Brother-in-law, your nose is flowing. Following Qin Yutong's shout, Qinya and Dong Huang Baiji looked over, and their eyebrows immediately wrinkled. Yi Hua stretched out his hand and touched his nose, and he was immediately stupefied. My nose is actually flowing, how is this possible? Could it really be because I didn't cover myself with a quilt? Achio! Yi Hua suddenly sneezed again, and his entire body was sent flying by his own sneeze, and he crashed into the wall and got stuck. The four women were stupefied. Only after quite a while did they come back to their senses. Yi Hua! Brother-in-law! Master! The four women hurriedly pulled Yi Hua out, and they actually discovered that Yi Hua had fainted. Qinya hurriedly placed her hand on Yi Hua's forehead. So hot, it wasn't so hot just now. Brother-in-law really caught a cold, and he even had a high fever, how is this possible? Qin Yutong was astonished. Qin Yutong knew of brother-in-law's strength, he is basically an invincible existence, and yet, he actually caught a cold for no reason. Could it be that he really caught a cold because he didn't cover himself with a quilt at night? Qinya hurriedly carried Yi Hua into the house, then treated Yi Hua with Dong Huang Baiji. However, there was no effect. Although there was no effect, Yi Hua still woke up. He felt that his entire body wasn't good, his entire body was powerless, as if he was about to collapse. Main Supreme Overlord, what happened to Main Supreme Overlord? Yi Hua mumbled. Yi Hua, you caught a cold. Qinya's heart ached. She sat at the bedside and held on to Yi Hua's hand. This is the first time that I have seen Yi Hua being so weak. Impossible, how could I catch a cold? Yihua wouldn't believe that there would actually be a day where I would catch a cold. Dongguang Baiji said gravely, Yihua, let's hurry back. Go back for what? Can this little bit of cold even stump me? You are truly indulging in fantasy. Yihua sat up, and he immediately felt that his head was dizzy. Damn it, could it be that I really caught a cold? This is impossible. Brother-in-law, don't worry, Yutong has 4 seasons cold capsule and amoxicillin here. Fortunately, I prepared some when I came over. Qin Yutong hurriedly went to pour some water, then fed it to Yihua. Yihua was thinking in his heart, do I really use these medicines? Master, what happened to you? Is Daji able to help you? Daji asked anxiously at the side. As a maid, there was actually nothing that she could do when her master was sick. Dongguang Baiji was still not at ease. Yihua, I will go and look for Wei Chang to come over and take a look at you. Before Yihua could say anything, Dongguang Baiji had already disappeared. In actuality, Yihua wanted to say, there is no need for that, I will just call for him and he will come over. Not long later, Wei Chang came over. Yihua immediately sent a private message to Wei Chang. Chapter 839. Madams, please wait outside. Wei Chang said respectfully. Qinya and the others nodded their heads, then walked out of the room. Your Honor, why don't you change into your original form and give it a try? Wei Chang was also very puzzled. It shouldn't be possible for me to catch a cold. Yihua could only give it a try, and thus, he transformed back into his true form on the bed. All the negative feelings disappeared. Your Honor, how do you feel? Wei Chang asked curiously. I'm fine. Yihua was also very puzzled. Immediately, he returned back to his human form, and an uncomfortable feeling assaulted his chest. Yihua asked coldly, Wei Chang, take a look at what is wrong with me. My head hurts. Your Honor, do you sleep with a blanket at night? Wei Chang stood at the bedside and asked respectfully. What the F***? What the hell does this have to do with the lid? Yihua was about to faint. Do I need to cover myself with a blanket when I am making love with my wives? If word of this were to spread out, I would be laughed at by others. Wei Chang solemnly nodded his head. Of course it's related, people sleep with blankets. Yihua was actually left speechless. Furthermore, Your Honor, I'm afraid that you are suffering from a viral cold. Wei Chang said gravely, seemingly as if his illness was very serious. Yihua, don't talk so much useless stuff, hurry up and treat me. After Yihua finished speaking, he felt that something was wrong. I have medicine with me, I just have to take the medicine and I will be fine. He quickly took out a handful of chocolate-like pills and stuffed them into his mouth. After a long while. Your Honor, are you feeling better? Good my ass, why is it getting more and more dizzy, and getting colder and colder? Yihua seemed to be too confident in his own body, and just like that, he gulped down a bunch of medicine. Your Honor, there is a conflict between medicine and medicine, you can't just take medicine like that. Then why didn't you warn me just now? Before subordinate could finish speaking, His Honor had already swallowed it. Yihua really wants to die. I should hurry up and return back to my original form. I feel much more comfortable now, all of my illnesses are gone. Just what is going on here? Yihua stretched out his hand and took a look at the finger. The finger is really long and slender. Wei Chang, who was at the side, bowed down and said, Your Honor, the human body is very strange. Take Xiao Tang for example, even though he is already very strong, his period still comes on time every month. After hearing what Wei Chang said, Yihua felt that what Wei Chang said was true. Qinya and the others' period would come too. Your Honor, what you need to do right now is to have a good rest, drink more hot water, and remember to cover yourself with the blanket when you sleep at night. Damn it, cover yourself with the quilt. Yi Hua said fiercely. Qin Ye's voice suddenly rang out from outside the door. Yi Hua, we have come in. Yi Hua, who was on the bed, hurriedly changed back to his human form. I still can't let them see my human form. If they were to see it, they would probably faint from fright. Ladies! Wei Chang shouted out respectfully. Soon after, he looked towards Daji and was a little puzzled. Why is there another woman beside his honor? It has only been a few days since his honor left, and this woman is really fast. As expected of his honor, he is very good at picking up girls. Furthermore, this woman's appearance is actually on par with the madam's, unimaginable. Wei Chang, how is Yi Hua? Donghuang Baiji asked hurriedly. Madam, his honor is suddenly feeling hot and cold. It should be the symptoms of a cold. In the future, his honor should drink more hot water, and when you sleep at night, you have to cover yourself with a blanket. When Yi Hua, who was lying on the bed, heard the word blanket, he got angry. I will catch a cold if I don't have a blanket? Who made the rules? Achio! Yi Hua suddenly sneezed again, and immediately, he felt dizzy and disoriented. Until now, Yi Hua still didn't dare to believe that he had caught a cold. Originally, Yi Hua only had a small cold, but because he took the medicine too quickly, the cold became even more serious. Is this the only way? Looking at how weak her brother-in-law was, Qing Yutong felt her heart ache. It was as if a giant had collapsed in an instant. Wei Chang nodded his head. Ladies, please don't worry, his honor is only suffering from a small illness, he will definitely be able to recover. Although they knew that Yi Hua would recover, Qing Ye and the others were still worried. After all, Yi Hua had never caught a cold before. If there is nothing else, subordinate will be leaving first. His honor, have a good rest, remember to cover yourself with the quilt. Yi Hua, so what if I don't cover myself with the quilt? I am invincible, so what if I don't cover myself with the quilt? Damn it, so cold. Yi Hua immediately hugged onto the quilt tightly and hid within the quilt while shivering. Damn it, it's so hot. Yi Hua immediately opened up the quilt. Out of the medicine that Yi Hua took just now, there were two medicine that were ice and fire medicine. One of them was called Vital Yang Foundation Pill. Just from the name, one could tell that it was a medicine that belonged to the fire attribute, and it specialized in treating cold-type injuries. There was also another one called North Pole Qi Enhancement Pill. As the name implied, it specialized in treating fire attribute injuries. However, these two medicine were made by a high-level overlord, and the medicinal power of the medicine was rather strong. Yi Hua's physical body wasn't very strong, but if he were to take the medicine like this, he would definitely have a problem. Furthermore, Yi Hua had just grabbed a bunch of the medicine that he took out just like eating beans. Right now, his entire body was moving up and down. So cold, wife, hurry up and warm me up. Yi Hua mumbled while lying on the bed. Her husband was already sick to such an extent, as a wife, she naturally couldn't just stand by the side and watch. Thus, all of them took off their clothes and got onto the bed, squeezed Yi Hua tightly in the middle, and used the temperature of their bodies to warm Yi Hua's body. If it was in the past, Yi Hua would definitely be very excited and immediately get into bed with them. But right now, damn it, it's so cold. Daji, who was standing at the side, was very gloomy. Her master has caught a cold, and I am unable to help him at all. I can only stand at the side and watch. Yi Hua, are you feeling a bit better? Donghuang Baiji said with heartache. That's right, are you feeling a bit better? Qingye didn't expect that the giant in her heart would fall one day. Brother-in-law, Yutong will warm your hands for you. Yi Hua was very helpless right now. You all should hurry up and leave. I, the Supreme Overlord, will just change back to my original body. This damnable body, after so many years, I actually caught a cold. Yi Hua, how about we go back and rest? This place isn't convenient either. Dong Huang Baiji still felt that if they were to go back, Wushu Empire would be a lot more uncomfortable. Yi Hua didn't want to go back right now. After all, I still don't know what those people are looking for. No, there's no need for that. I will be fine after resting for a day. Yi Hua's eyes seemed to be on the verge of not being able to open anymore. I am so tired, I really want to sleep. While talking, Yi Hua really fell asleep. The three women looked at each other and sighed lightly. Soon after, they tightly hugged onto the man in their embrace. It would be good if they could let him feel a bit of warmth. At the same time, they also had to cover themselves with a blanket so that they wouldn't catch a cold, especially during winter. On the other side, 3 Despair Palaces Hua Yang had already arrived at a restaurant. For something like this to happen, my teacher will definitely come over to question me. The main point is that I angered an emperor to death, and 3 Despair Palaces' reputation will be tarnished. Sitting on a wooden stool, Hua Yang drank his tea mouthful by mouthful. It's just that the mission that Master gave me, is that strange flame really in the Azure Dragon Empire? Chapter 840. This time, Chu Yuxuan and Hua Yang's mission was to find strange flames. The two of them could only be considered the vanguard. After all, strange flames were not ordinary treasures. They were super rare. In order to not alert the enemy, they sent the two of them to scout ahead to see if they could find anything. To find a heavenly flame, one needed luck and fate. Hua Yang, who was deep in thought, did not notice that someone was beside him. Hua Yang. A man shrouded in a black robe said. Hearing this voice, Hua Yang's expression changed. He knelt down on one knee and shouted, "Master." The man in the black robe took off his hat, revealing a common face. He looked ordinary, like a passerby walking on the street. I heard that you angered the Emperor of the Azure Dragon Empire to death. Henry sat at the side and poured himself a cup of normal tea. He blew at the steam and frowned as he took a sip. Hua Yang quickly lowered his head, his face full of fear. "Master, I had no choice." Henry looked at his disciple and chuckled. Hua Yang, Master doesn't blame you for angering the Emperor to death. One emperor is nothing. What's important is that you defeated Chu Yuxuan of the Benevolent King prison. Is that true? I don't know, but I let him escape in the end. Hua Yang did not mention the possession. In the past, it was Chu Yuxuan who defeated him. Although he was suspected to have cheated this time, at least he defeated him. No matter what method he used, his reputation would be better. Henry patted Hua Yang's shoulder. It's okay. Regardless of whether Chu Yuxuan died or not, you still brought shame to 3 Absolute Palace. But Master, angering the Emperor to death. It seems to have aroused public anger. Hua Yang said worriedly. Right now, the entire Azure Dragon Empire was saying that he angered the Emperor to death. Some children even made up a song and sang it. Don't worry, the Palace Master has his own arrangements. What's a small Azure Dragon Empire? 3 Absolute Palace can destroy it with a flick of their fingers. Don't take such a small matter to heart and don't feel burdened. You didn't kill the Emperor anyway. You'll just be a laughing stock if you die from anger. Hearing his master's words, Hua Yang felt a little better. It was just that the Emperor was too weak. He was angered to death over such a small matter. It had nothing to do with him. Master, I don't have a single clue as to where the deviant flame is. Henry's face did not reveal any disappointment as he asked, when you were searching, did you encounter any other forces? Other than the Benevolent King prison, there are no other forces. Huayang seemed to have understood something. His mission this time was not to find the mystical flame, but to scout and see how many forces were coming. Moreover, the heavenly flame was such an important thing, how could he let him know about it? The temple master is determined to get the mystical flame this time. In the entire Kangluo continent, only the Divine Academy and the Meridian Break sect have the mystical flame. There isn't a single force in the entire north that has a treasure like the mystical flame. Therefore, we must get the mystical flame this time. Then, our 3 absolute palace will become the most powerful force in the entire north, even on par with the great forces like the Meridian Break sect and the Divine Academy. When Henry said these words, he was filled with excitement. He was fighting for the northern side and not letting the 2 factions in the south dominate the world. Master, that kind of day is coming soon. Huayang's face was also filled with excitement. As long as he got the mystical flame, the temple master would become the overlord of the north, and 3 absolute palace would be able to expand endlessly. Henry nodded his head and put away his excited expression. The most important task now is to find the mystical flame. Master, where is the mystical flame? Huayang asked curiously. You will know when the time comes, Henry said indifferently. And Huayang felt that even his master didn't know where the mystical flame was. The benevolent king prison was located to the west of Aluo River. This place was gray in color, as if it was the wreckage left behind by the end of the world. There was a huge volcano that was flowing with magma, and the benevolent king prison was located around the volcano. The magma flowed outside the house like seawater. The surrounding temperature was also a lot higher than normal areas, but it was under this kind of high temperature that countless outstanding disciples were nurtured. On top of the volcano, a bright red palace floated in the air, giving off a strange aura. Prison Emperor, the prison warden Chu that we sent was defeated by 3 absolute palaces. Huayang, his whereabouts are unknown. Below the prison emperor were 8 prison kings, and below them were 36 prison wardens. As the prison emperor, his strength was at the peak of the Do Zong stage, and he was only 1 step away from the Do Di stage. The 8 prison kings were all at the peak of the Do Huang stage, and they were only 1 step away from the Do Zong stage. The prison emperor who was sitting cross-legged on the high platform was an old man. He didn't turn into a young man, but used his age to remind himself that time was of the essence, and he had to train harder. Standing below him were the 8 prison kings, and the one who spoke just now was one of them. He was also Chu Yuxuan's master, Guang Yutang. Chu Yuxuan is a good seedling, we must find him. Prison Emperor Yang Yao said, but his eyes didn't open. Yes, Prison Emperor. The 8 prison kings replied respectfully. At this moment, Prison Emperor Yang Yao spoke again. How did the 3 absolute palace find out about the appearance of the mystical flame this time? We must get to the bottom of this matter. I don't want to see a traitor appear among you all. Following the prison emperor's words, the 8 prison kings immediately knelt on the ground and shouted, subordinates are absolutely loyal to the prison emperor. That's great, the appearance of the mystical flame is imminent, I only need 1 word. The 8 prison kings shouted in unison, kill. However, the prison emperor opened his eyes, and it was truly captivating. It's to snatch. The 8 prison kings were stunned for a moment, and they felt a little awkward. Subordinate obeys. Everyone, go and prepare, 3 absolute palace is also preparing. This battle cannot be underestimated. Subordinate obeys. The 8 prison kings received the order and went to make arrangements, while Yang Yao slowly stood up and muttered, luckily there is only 1 3 absolute palace, if there were a few more, it would be even more troublesome. Suddenly, Yang Yao stretched out his palm, as if he was summoning his weapon. The magma in the volcano began to surge slightly, and then it became bigger and bigger. Puff! A weapon that was completely covered in magma rushed into the sky, and as the magma fell, it revealed its original form. It was Entombed Spike, and from the aura that it was emitting, it was most likely a prehistoric godly item, and from the brilliance that it was emitting, it must have been refined at least twice. Whether or not we can snatch the mystical flame this time, it will all depend on you. Following Yang Yao's words, the tomb spike in the sky immediately flew back, and Yang Yao stretched out his arm. The entire tomb spike covered Yang Yao's arm, and it looked like a pair of gauntlets, but who knew that it was actually a prehistoric godly item? End of this chapter. Chapter 841. Yihua actually had a lot of high-grade weapons, but it was a pity that these high-grade weapons had not been tempered before. However, as a high-grade weapon, even if it was not tempered, its might was still quite great. After being tempered, it would be even better. However, if one wanted to temper a weapon, one had to be mentally prepared, because when tempering a weapon, the weapon could explode and disappear at any time. After all, the success rate was very high. Yang Yao's primordial godly weapon had been tempered twice, and it could be seen that he was also a person who took risks. After all, if he was not careful, this primordial godly weapon might shatter, and that would be the sound of his heart shattering. Right now, Yang Yao had started the third tempering. He placed it in the magma to make the tomb spike more sturdy. However, if what he was holding was a primordial godly weapon, Yang Yao wouldn't dare to temper it like this. After all, primordial godly weapons were very rare, and there weren't many of them in the entire Kangluo continent. The war surrounding the Azure Dragon Empire was about to start, and the people living in the Azure Dragon Empire all felt a stifling atmosphere. However, Yihua, who caught a cold, was a bit miserable. For the past few days, Yihua had been wrapping himself with a blanket when he got out of bed, and he was feeling very dizzy. Qin Ye's 3 wives felt very distressed when they saw Yihua. The 3 wives and a maid were taking care of Yihua every single day. However, Yihua felt that he shouldn't have caught a cold, rather, it was a kind of indescribable feeling, as if something was calling out to him. The 10+ types of deviant flames in his body were also very excited, as if they were waiting for their little brother. Towards this kind of feeling, Yihua didn't know how to explain it. The deviant flames in his body had always been very calm, and it was only recently that they became a bit restless. Yihua felt that his cold was caused by these deviant flames. After all, the fierceness of deviant flames shocked even Yihua. Just like the fire that Ali released in Voidless Realm, that fire was completely unextinguishable, and even Yihua was unable to stop the fire from burning. If Yihua were to say what weapon was the most overpowered in the world, Yihua would say without hesitation, and that would be deviant flames. Back then, most of the overlords who besieged me had deviant flames, but there were also some who didn't. At that time, I only had one type of deviant flame, and only after I reincarnated did I realize that all of their deviant flames were duplicated by me. Qinya, Baiji, help me out for a walk. Right now, even Yihua's tone had changed a bit. He was a bit annoyed by the flames, and his physical body was completely unable to endure the flames messing around with him. Dong Wang Baiji held onto the bowl of millet porridge and said tenderly, Yihua, what you need to do right now is to rest properly. Yes, brother-in-law. What if you go out and get blown by the wind and catch a cold? Ever since Yihua fell sick, Qing Yutong finally had the appearance of a wife. This isn't a cold, I think that I have already found the reason. Yihua said lightly, then carried the blanket and got off the bed. Nowadays, he really had to cover himself with a blanket wherever he went. Qinya and Dong Huang Baiji hurriedly held on to Daji. Daji, who was following behind the crowd, realized that she was unable to help at all and felt very guilty. Everyone came to the pavilion outside, and Yihua shivered. Daji hurriedly burned some charcoal to warm her master up. How is the Azure Dragon Empire recently? Yihua felt that he had already been lying on the bed for 4 to 5 days, and he didn't know what was going on outside. Qin Yutong, who was sitting at the side, said lightly, "Brother-in-law, recently, a lot of people have appeared in the city. I heard from others that they are people from 3 Absolute Palace and King Ren Prison. Furthermore, the day of the Emperor's funeral is coming soon." Right now, Yihua finally knew that what 3 Absolute Palace and King Ren Prison were fighting over was most likely the deviant fire. The deviant fire in my body is definitely attracting the deviant fire, just like how it is seeking a mate, which is why my body ended up like this. Only Yihua would dare to play with more than 10 different deviant fires in his body. If he was unable to control the deviant fire, he would end up self-destructing, which was very dangerous. Looking at her husband's pensive look, Qinya asked curiously, "Yihua, did you discover something?" Yihua didn't say anything and stretched out his index finger, and a purple flame appeared on his finger. "This is firmament ghost fire, it is a type of deviant fire," Yihua said faintly, and the purple flame danced on his finger as if it had a life of its own. Looking at the flame on Yihua's hand, Qinya, Donghuang Baiji, and Qin Yutong's reaction was very normal, because the 4 children all knew how to use deviant fire. Among them, Donghuang Li was very good at using deviant fire. She was simply even better at using deviant fire than her own father. However, when Daji saw the deviant fire on her master's hand, her beautiful eyes became astonished. "Master actually possesses a thing like deviant fire, he is truly formidable. As expected of my master, he is ridiculously formidable." If Daji were to find out that her master possesses more than 10 types of deviant fire, I wonder how shocked she would be. "What does this have to do with you catching a cold?" Donghuang Baiji asked curiously. Yihua kept the firmament ghost fire and said faintly, "These deviant fires are very powerful, powerful to the point that it is unimaginable." Back then, Ali burned down a mountain in Voidless Realm, and that can only be said to be Voidless Realm's luck, as not all of the mountains were burned down. Every type of deviant fire has its own unique effect, and they are also able to attract each other, just like what is happening right now. Donghuang Baiji immediately understood. "Yihua, you are saying that there is a type of deviant fire that is currently summoning you?" Yihua shook his head. "It is not the deviant fire that is summoning me, it is the deviant fire within my body that is summoning me. That is why the deviant fire within my body seems to be a bit restless, causing me to catch a cold." To be honest, Yihua still had some thoughts about the deviant fire. After all, the rarity of deviant fire was just that, back then, only have one type of firmament ghost fire, and with just that one type of deviant fire, I fought from beginning to end. From this, it could be seen just how ferocious the deviant fire is. If not for the fact that the other party has a lot of deviant fires, how could I possibly lose? What kind of joke is this? Qin Yutong nodded her head and said, "I understand, those 2 powers are here for the deviant fire. It is going to be soon, within these few days, the deviant fire is going to appear." Yihua said in a low voice, and couldn't help but shiver. "So cold, it must be that deviant fire that got excited just now, and it caused me to freeze. Then, should we make some preparations? After all, there are 2 powers that are here to fight over the deviant fire." Qingye said worriedly. "If a battle were to start, we definitely wouldn't be able to take care of Yihua." Yihua already had a plan in his heart, and he said lightly, "It's fine, this time, even if we don't fight, we will still be able to get the deviant fire." "Could it be that the deviant fire is able to fly towards you on its own?" Donghuang Baiji asked curiously. Yihua squeezed out a trace of a smile, then said lightly, "Could it be that there are other places for the deviant fire to go? I am just curious, what kind of ability does the deviant fire have this time, to actually be able to cause the deviant fire within my body to become so restless? I am a bit looking forward to it." Although Yihua said that, Qingye still asked with concern, "Yihua, are you sure that your body is fine? Nothing bad will happen to you, right?" End of this chapter. Chapter 842. Chinya, don't worry, I am very clear about the condition of my body. Let us wait for the appearance of the abnormal flame. Yihua said slowly. The abnormal flame in his body was getting happier and happier. Is this meeting a big sister or a big brother? Yihua didn't know. Big brother ? Are you feeling better? At this moment, Wani walked over with a bag on his back and asked with concern. He was also very curious. Big brother ? Actually caught a cold. This is too fake. Ever since I started cultivating, I have forgotten what a cold is. Yihua took a look at Wan Yi and felt very helpless. My main body actually has this kind of appearance, and it was even seen by others. He is much better. Wan Yi, where are you planning to go? Chinya asked curiously. Wan Yi dressed up as if he was going to go somewhere far away. Wan Yi had also thought clearly in these few days that staying here was not a solution. A real man should travel around the world and become stronger through experience. I am planning to go out. My parents have already asked them to go to northern Liang, which is the Wushu Empire that brother ? mentioned. Hearing that Wan Yi was planning to go out to train, Yihua thought highly of him. After all, he was much better than those who only know how to eat and wait for death at home. Thus, when Yihua stood up, Qin Yutong, who was at the side, hurriedly held on to Yihua and patted on Wan Yi's shoulder. Training is something that every man has to go through. I hope that the next time I see you, you will be able to achieve something. I am also staying at Wushu Empire. Being said by brother ? Wan Yi felt very energetic. Brother ? You can be at ease. If I don't become famous, I will not return. Hearing Wan Yi's words, Yihua laughed lightly. Be careful on your way back. Wan Yi nodded his head, then cupped his hands towards everyone and said, Brother ? Big sister ? I won't accompany you all anymore. Goodbye everyone. Goodbye. Chinya and the others said with a smile. Wan Yi took a deep breath, then turned around and left the empire that he had lived in for more than 10 years to start his new life. After Wan Yi left, Donghuang Baizhi laughed. Didn't you all notice? Our Yihua has changed a lot. Following Donghuang Baizhi's words, Chinya and Qin Yutong both felt it. In the past, Yihua's face was like an ice block, and he basically didn't smile when he saw others. Look at him now, he actually encouraged others. This is such a good change, he has become more and more like a human. Why do I have to use this to describe him? This is so strange. Could it be that Yihua doesn't look like a human? After hearing that, Yihua said faintly, humans need to change. We can't always live in the present. If not, how different would we be from a salted fish? This sentence was approved by Chinya and the others. Change requires courage, just like Wan Yi, who had lived here for so many years. Now that he decided to leave, he also needed courage to bid farewell to his past life. That's right. The day of the emperor's funeral soon arrived. The whole city mourned, and white scarves were hung everywhere. The imperial palace had also set up temporary palaces, and the restoration work was slowly progressing. Within the imperial palace, a final ceremony was being held. Gu Haoran stood at the very front, wearing his imperial robe and crown, weeping so loudly that it shook heaven and earth. Even though he was crying and looked very weak, some of the ministers felt that this was how a filial son should be. He was crying so loudly, crying because of the death of the late emperor. Gu Cha, who was standing below, laughed coldly. He really knew how to act like a filial son. In his heart, he could not wait for his father to die. The ceremony still had to continue, and only when the auspicious time was right would they be able to leave and be buried in the imperial mausoleum. At this moment, in an unremarkable restaurant, an old man and a young man were sitting. The old man was the prison emperor of the benevolent king prison, Yang Yao. The young man beside him looked elegant, but in actuality, he was also an expert at the peak of the Dozong realm. He was the palace master of the three absolute palace, Shiryu. Right now, the two big shots seemed to be doing their final negotiation. As long as they didn't reach an agreement, there was no way to start a war. For the sake of the mystical fire, the two huge powers had used up all of their resources. Prison Emperor, long time no see. You have gotten older again, and you have lost even more hair. I am really worried that you will become bald. Shiryu lightly waved his folding fan and said with a smile. If Yang Yao wanted to, he could also turn into his younger appearance, but there was no need for that. Everyone had their own ambitions. At least it is better than you pretending to be young. Yang Yao said faintly. This Shiryu is even older than me, and he actually turned into the appearance of a young man. I wonder how the word shame is written. Hearing Yang Yao's mockery, Shiryu closed the folding fan in his hand. He hated people saying that he was old the most. Wasn't pretending to be young mocking him for being old. Damn the benevolent king prison. Why doesn't that volcano erupt and burn everyone to death? Only my three absolute palace can rule the Aluo River. Shiryu seemed to have thought of something and opened his folding fan with a smile. That Warden Chu of yours is only so-so. He was beaten up by my disciple and ran away in the end. That's really unacceptable. Do the disciples of the benevolent king prison only know how to run? You are flaunting your prowess here after winning once. If Warden Chu won in the past, wouldn't I be able to step on your face? Yang Yao was very good at talking. Shiryu seemed to be no match for him at all. Seeing that Shiryu was speechless, Yang Yao said again, your disciple angered the emperor of the Azure Dragon Empire to death. Today is the emperor's funeral. You should at least bring some people to pay your respects. This will show that your three absolute palace is magnanimous. Yang Yao. Shiryu shouted softly. He was the palace master of the three absolute palace. How could he be asked to pay respects to an emperor? What a joke. Since ancient times, those who win the hearts of the people rule the world. Your three absolute palace doesn't have a good reputation now. Yang Yao, don't talk so much nonsense. I want this heavenly flame. Name your conditions. As long as I have it, you can take it. Shiryu proposed a very good condition. However, nothing could be compared to the heavenly flame. Not even a chaos divine weapon could compare. Moreover, after obtaining the heavenly flame, anything could come. There was no need to worry about not having good treasures. More importantly, both of them wanted to rely on the heavenly flame to break through to the Emperor Do. This was because the peak of the Dozong realm was too difficult to break through. Without an opportunity, it was impossible to break through the bottleneck. Yang Yao laughed softly and knocked on a melon seed. He said indifferently, how about this? You leave and you can take whatever you want from my benevolent king prison. Yang Yao, you know the importance of the heavenly flame even without me telling you. Shiryu said with a calm face. Of course, those who win the heavenly flame rule the world. In the entire Kangluo continent, only the Broken Meridian sect and the Shin Academy have the heavenly flame. I, Yang Yao, will be the third person to obtain the heavenly flame. I will lead the entire north. Shiryu sighed and said in a low voice, Yang Yao. Aren't you afraid that the people from the Yuanyang prefecture will come and snatch it? Speaking of the Yuanyang prefecture, Yang Yao became silent. End of this chapter. Chapter 843. This Yuanyang mansion was located to the south of the Aluo River. Of course, it was still considered to be in the north. However, the Yuanyang mansion was very powerful. Its mansion chief was a Dodi. How terrifying. Even the three absolute palace and the benevolent king prison combined were no match for them in terms of overall strength. Fortunately, Yuanyang Mansion was very far away from Aluo River, so they wouldn't know what was happening here. Therefore, Yang Yao wasn't too worried about the people of Yuanyang Mansion getting involved. Sure you don't have to scare me with Yuanyang Prefecture's people. As long as I get the mystical flame, Yuanyang Prefecture's people are nothing. Yang Yao's words might appear arrogant, but what he said was the truth. Yang Yao could rely on the heavenly flame to break through to the Do D class by obtaining it. A Do D with a heavenly flame and a Do D without a heavenly flame were two different things. Sure you chuckled after listening, as if laughing at Yang Yao's naivety. Yang Yao, the birth of the mystical flame is such a big thing, how could the people of Yuanyang Palace not know about it? Even if they knew, they wouldn't dare to come out now. Then, have you ever thought that when we are fighting each other to the death, people from the Primal Yang Palace will show up and reap the benefits? Sure Yu's consideration was very thorough. After all, this was a big matter, and he couldn't let others take advantage of it. After hearing Sure Yu's words, Yang Yao fell into deep thought. After a long time, he asked, "You seem to have a better idea." "That's right. Something like a heavenly flame has a lot of potential. Even a sovereign would want to possess one, let alone the two of us. So, let's not talk about those empty words. Since we've called people from both sides over, let's just fight for it with our own strength. The one who gets the heavenly flame will be left to fate." Sure Yu paused for a moment. "But as long as the people from Yuanyang Palace show up, we have to stop and unite against them. What do you say?" Yang Yao frowned. His wrinkled face looked dull and alert. "How can I trust you?" Yang Yao asked in a deep voice. "Believe. Do you think we can defeat Yuanyang Prefecture by ourselves?" Yang Yao took a deep breath. "Okay. Before Yuanyang Manor comes, we'll fight for it with our own strength. But when Yuanyang Manor comes, we'll kill them. We can only kill them. Otherwise, we'll be the ones to die." Sure Yu's words were not without reason. There had always been deaths in the fight for heavenly flames, and there were quite a few of them. Yang Yao and Sure Yu both hoped that there wouldn't be a third faction in the fight for the heavenly flame. This was the best outcome. As for the ownership of the heavenly flame, that would depend on one's strength. The two of them took a sip of tea at the same time and turned to leave. Meanwhile, in one residence, Yi Hua was actually sitting on a wooden wheelchair. His body was covered with a thick blanket, and Daji was pushing the wheelchair from behind. Right now, it was noon, and the sun was high up in the sky. However, Yi Hua was so cold that he was shivering, and even his lips were trembling. The 10+ types of deviant flames within Yi Hua's body were becoming more and more irritable. Yi Hua didn't even know why they were becoming irritable. Do they want to reunite with each other, or do they want to kill each other? "Yi Hua, are you all right?" Qinya asked concernedly as she stretched out her hand and touched Yi Hua's forehead. Yi Hua's forehead is ice cold, and when I touched it just now, it was still boiling hot. Yi Hua swallowed his saliva. "That strange flame should be coming out soon, I can feel it." "Brother-in-law, in that case, are we just going to sit here like this and not go and snatch it?" Qing Yutong asked curiously. Dong Wang Baiji said tenderly, "Yutong, do you still not understand your brother-in-law? He isn't someone who takes the initiative to attack." Qing Yutong spread out her hands. "That's true, brother-in-law usually doesn't take the initiative to attack, because brother-in-law wants to act cool. Yutong, wait for me to recover, I will spank your butt." Yi Hua said in a low voice, and even his voice was trembling. Yi Hua's voice was trembling because of the cold. "Tisk, tsk, tisk." Qing Yutong made a face, then ran to the garden in the center and started dancing. Qing Yutong was a celebrity, what kind of dance doesn't she know? Her dance of this folk dance was very good. Yihua looked at Qin Yutong who was dancing, then waved his hand. Peach blossoms descended from the sky, and in an instant, the scene was extremely beautiful. Qinye and Donghuang Baiji revealed a smile on their faces. Yutong has grown up, she knows how to dance for men. In actuality, Daji also wanted to go up and dance for a bit, but since the madam was already dancing, I won't be able to go up. If I were to go up, I would have to blame myself for not following the rules and stealing the limelight from the madam. I didn't expect that Yutong would know how to dance. Yihua laughed lightly, then hugged onto the blanket tightly. I am freezing to death. Qinye and Donghuang Baiji took a glance at each other, then walked up to the blanket. The three women suddenly changed into a pink dance dress, and at the same time, they got into a pose. Yihua gradually sat up straight. This is the first time that I have seen the three of them dancing together, and furthermore, they are so neat. How can every frown and every smile of theirs be so beautiful? The thing that I, the Supreme Overlord, regret the least in my entire life is marrying three wives like this. After the dance finished, Qinye asked, Yihua, was it nice? Good. Very good. This is great. Yihua said good 3 times in a row. From this, it could be seen that he was truly happy. And upon hearing Yihua's praise, the 3 wives were rather happy as well. After all, it has been a long time since they last heard their husbands praise them. Seeing Yihua's smile appearing on his face once again, the 3 wives felt very comfortable. In order to make their husbands smile, they had to put in a lot of effort. The few came to the pavilion. Daji brewed tea, while Yihua and the others sat at the side, waiting for the deviant fire to appear. Yihua, how much longer do you need? Donghuang Baiji asked curiously. Soon. Dong, dong, dong. Right after Yihua finished speaking, the entire Azure Dragon Empire's bell rang out. This was the bell that signified that the emperor was going to be buried. At the Imperial Mausoleum in the southern suburbs, the Imperial Mausoleum had already been repaired long ago. Gu Pai had also properly arranged his own funeral matters. Right now, the Imperial Mausoleum was filled with crying sounds. However, it wasn't Gu Haoran who was crying, it was the emperor's concubines who were crying. Only the empress didn't need to be buried with the emperor, the rest of the concubines had to be buried with the emperor. What a cruel rule. A living person had to walk into an incomparably dark tomb and then wait for death or even drive himself crazy. The auspicious time has arrived, let's begin the burial. Following the eunuch's duck cry, the entourage slowly walked into the tomb. A few of those concubines fainted, but very quickly, they were carried into the tomb. However, the imperial family had its own rules. They entered the palace to enjoy life, and they should have long known that such a day would come. The entire imperial mausoleum was constructed very well, to the point that it was almost the same as the emperor's bedroom. If one had enough food, living in the imperial mausoleum would be no different from living in the imperial palace. Over 10 soldiers carried the emperor's coffin and placed it at the center of the tomb. Gu Haoran let out a breath. After kowtowing, everything is finally settled. Ladies and concubines, it has been hard on you all to accompany father. I hope that you all can live happily on the other side. Gu Haoran said to the concubines. I beg of you, please let us off, we don't want to be buried with father. End of this chapter. Chapter 844. Your Majesty, please let us go. I don't want to die. I also don't want to die, Your Majesty. Most of these imperial concubines were young, beautiful, and in the prime of their lives. Some had only been in the palace for a year or even a month. There were even some who had not been favored. Who would be willing to be buried with them in such a muddled way? Men, Gu Haoran called out calmly. A few soldiers immediately dragged these women to the side and used the scabbards in their hands to beat them up. After that, none of the concubines dared to call for help. You were my father's women when you were alive, and you will be my father's women after you are dead. You should feel honored that you are blessed by the heavens, not desolation and grief. Gu Haoran shouted loudly. The rules set down by the ancestors could not be broken. After all, if the emperor died, could it be that these imperial concubines would all be disbanded? And then slept with another man. As the emperor. Thoughts were tyrannical. As long as he died, everything would be buried with him. Seal the tomb. Gu Haoran shouted. He couldn't wait to go back and become the emperor. Your Majesty. Zhang Jing, who was standing at the side, suddenly shouted. Gu Haoran trusted Zhang Jing. What's wrong? Emperor. What does that light mean? Zhang Jing pointed at a light source that was gradually tilting. Gu Haoran paused for a moment before saying, it should be father's idea. This light source should have been dug in and moved along with the sun. From this angle, it should have moved to the coffin. Father still wants to feel the warmth of the sun. After saying that, Gu Haoran laughed. His father really knew how to enjoy life. Even though he was dead, he still wanted to bask in the sun. Zhang Jing nodded. Gu Haoran took the lead and walked out, followed by a group of soldiers, leaving behind a group of absent-minded women to be buried with them. As the heavy stone door closed, the tomb chamber fell into silence. Only the cries of hundreds of concubines could be heard. However, there were a few concubines who were looking at that ray of sunlight that was slowly moving, from the wall to the side of the coffin. When the beam of light moved to the center of the room, it suddenly refracted. There was a mirror in the center of the coffin, and the light shone through the tomb. The bronze mirrors around the coffin seemed to be a strange array, and it actually caused a strange pattern to appear on the light. This situation stunned the concubines. What was going on? Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, the sound of a stone door opening could be heard. This caused all the concubines to be stunned for a moment, then they all rushed towards the stone door. However, there were still more than 10 concubines who didn't go. They just sat there in a daze. These concubines were a little old, and they probably couldn't bear to part with him. They had feelings for him, and those who ran out were all young concubines. The stone door closed without any warning, and a series of terrifying sounds rang out, as well as a woman's miserable cries. The remaining dozen or so concubines instantly understood what the emperor meant, because another stone door opened on the other side. When the stone door opened, a ray of light shone in, illuminating the pitch-black passageway. Beside the passageway, there were the emperor's words. The meaning was simple: I don't want you to die with me. You should have your own brand new life. As for what happened just now, it was just a small test. Gu Pai wasn't a cruel emperor. Those were all women that he had slept with before, and he couldn't bear to let them die just like that. However, he couldn't break the rules. Thus, he thought of this method to see how many of those women were sincere. Only those who were sincere would have the chance to live. The dozen or so concubines kowtowed towards the coffin and thanked the emperor for his kindness. Soon after, they walked out of the tomb. However, there were still 2 concubines who didn't leave. They chose to stay here and guard the coffin. Gradually, the stone door closed. The entire tomb became silent once again, and the atmosphere was filled with the aura of death. However, right at this moment, a bronze mirror suddenly fell, and the clanging sound startled the 2 concubines. However, at this moment, the light source changed. A dragon head was carved on the top of the coffin, and the light source just so happened to shoot into the dragon's eyes. The dragon's eyes gradually lit up, and the rocks on the dragon's head gradually fell off. This startled the two concubines. How did the stone dragon come back to life? Roar. A dragon roar suddenly exploded out in the tomb. However, when the group that was returning to the city heard this dragon roar, they all stopped their footsteps. Gu Haoran, who was sitting on the throne, asked loudly, "Zhang Jing, what's going on?" "Your Majesty, a dragon roar seemed to have come out from the imperial tomb just now." Even Zhang Jing felt as if his ears were ringing. Gu Haoran hurriedly got off the carriage and looked towards the imperial tomb that was not far away. Boom! The top of the imperial tomb could be seen being broken through, and a green dragon could be seen soaring into the sky. The green dragon had a long beard and a pair of eyes that could captivate one's heartstrings, was looking down at the ground. Gu Haoran was stupefied, Zhang Jing was also stupefied, everyone in the group was stupefied, the divine dragon in the legends. Roar! The green divine dragon roared towards the sky and flew towards Aluol River. After the divine dragon left, countless figures could be seen from within the Azure Dragon Empire. Naturally, Yang Yao and Shiryu were also amongst them. The appearance of the abnormal flame meant that the abnormal flame was about to appear. Yihua, who was sitting in the pavilion, let out a breath. "Yihua, what's wrong?" Qinya asked concernedly. "I feel a bit better." After the dragon roar just now, Yihua felt that the abnormal flame within his body had calmed down, as if it wasn't that anxious anymore. However, it was still a bit restless, not sure if it was due to excitement or fear. "I reckon that it was due to excitement. After all, how could it be possible for the abnormal flame within my body to be afraid of another type of abnormal flame? Brother-in-law, was it that dragon roar just now?" Qin Yutong asked curiously. "And that dragon roar is an abnormal flame. After all, the appearance of an abnormal flame would always be accompanied by the appearance of an abnormal flame," Yihua said faintly. "Thinking back then, I also obtained my abnormal flame like this. Good things all have to be snatched. Do you think that someone would send them to you?" Dong Huang Baiji wanted to go and take a look. This is a bit interesting. Of course it is interesting, everyone wants an abnormal flame, including myself. Towards treasures, Yihua also had a hobby of collecting treasures, let alone a treasure like an abnormal flame. The few of them looked towards the horizon. A lot of people were flying out of the city, and the sky was filled with darkness. At the very front was Prison Emperor Yang Yao and Palace Master Shiryu. Ha! Abnormal flame. It really is an abnormal flame. Shiryu let out a crazed laughter. For a divine dragon to actually appear, this abnormal flame must not be an ordinary abnormal flame. Although Yang Yao didn't say anything, his eyes were filled with excitement. It really is an abnormal flame. This intelligence report was actually true. It was unimaginable. Just as the two of them were getting excited, the green divine dragon could be seen rushing into Aluol River. This action caused the two of them to be startled. Aluol River means that it knows everything. No matter how strong a creature is, if it were to fall into Aluol River, even a deity would not be able to save it. If this divine dragon rushed into Aluol River, would it still be able to come out alive? End of this chapter. Chapter 845. Yang Yao and Shiryu stood in the sky. They could also see Hua Yang's figure from 3 absolute palaces side. Right now, they were also shocked by what they saw. Suddenly, the water of Aluol River began to boil, and the water level dropped. No one knew how deep the water of Aluol River was, but everyone actually saw the bottom. And that green dragon just now actually sucked up all the water of Aluol River. This is too terrifying. Right now, the dragon was like a child that had eaten its fill. Its 4 claws were facing the sky, revealing its pure white abdomen. Where's the deviant flame? Sure, you asked curiously. I don't know. Yang Yao was also a bit confused. The appearance of the green dragon was also a coincidence within a coincidence. In order to complete all the conditions, the emperor had to die. Only when the emperor died would he be buried, and only then would the coffin be placed in the arranged position to reflect the light. Of course, there was also the copper mirror that fell for no reason. It was as if everything was arranged by someone. From the information at the beginning to angering the emperor to death, everything was so meticulous, and there was not a single flaw. Whether this was a real anomaly or a man-made anomaly, no one knew. What should we do? Sure, you couldn't make up her mind. And Yang Yao also didn't know what to do. This is a dragon, if we offend it, only death awaits us. But what about the deviant flame? Where did the deviant flame go? Suddenly, the green dragon changed, the dragon's tail began to gradually disappear, turning into green starlight that floated in the sky, but didn't dissipate. In the blink of an eye, the entire dragon disappeared, and what replaced it was green starlight that floated in the sky. Everyone felt that the temperature was rising, and it was getting a bit hot, suddenly. The green starlight gathered and turned into a lump of green light. Puff! A lump of green flame appeared in front of everyone, and the green light instantly illuminated the ground. Everyone was attracted by the color of the flame. That gentle green light made people feel very comfortable, and even made them want to sleep. Among the people from both sides, quite a number of people fell down. Yang Yao and Shi Yu didn't care about them, they were attracted by the deviant flame in front of them, and greed appeared in their eyes. The legendary deviant flame is right in front of us. If I were to obtain it, then I would be able to get whatever I want. We can even be on par with Meridian Break Sect and Deity Academy. Yang Yao and Shi Yu looked at each other. The strength of someone at the peak of the Do Zone class was completely unleashed. A majestic aura whistled in all directions, forming a strong wind. Kill! Kill! Following the words of the two bosses, the lackeys behind them roared angrily and began to fight. Yang Yao had already put on the thrice-tempered tomb spike. The thrice-tempered tomb spike emitted a faint blue light. Yang Yao, I didn't expect that you would actually refine a primeval divine weapon thrice. Shi Yu spoke very casually, but his eyes were filled with astonishment. He was truly courageous, actually daring to temper it 3 times. Was he not afraid of failing and breaking it? After all, it was not that easy to obtain a primordial godly item. Yang Yao snorted coldly, in order to obtain the mystical flame, I have already made all the preparations. Shi Yu, if you leave now, we will still be friends in the future. Yang Yao, you still think too highly of yourself. Shi Yu bellowed angrily. The robe on his body instantly tore apart, revealing a set of gold-threaded armor underneath. Shi Yu, this gold-threaded armor of yours has been tempered twice, why did you stop tempering it? Perhaps it might be able to block my tomb spike. Old man, twice is enough to block your tomb spike, watch my blade. Shi Yu bellowed angrily. A long blade that was flickering with a cold light condensed in his hand. This blade was not some cheap weapon, it was even tempered 8 times. A faint orange light was emitting out from the blade. Yang Yao laughed loudly, you dare to be arrogant in front of me with such insignificant skills, toxic dragon drill. Yang Yao's arm emitted out a blue light, and the tomb spike was shot out. The speed of the spike was so fast that it made one speechless. Yang Yao, you are looking down on me too much. The large blade in Shi Yu's hand immediately swayed. Seems like I came prepared. 5-element blade. Shi Yu roared angrily. An illusion actually appeared from the large blade in his hand. The illusion was 300 meters long, causing one to be speechless. When the disciples saw that the palace master was so formidable, they all cheered. The mystical flame is mine. Shiryu slashed down with all his might. The corner of Yang Yao's mouth carried a trace of an evil smile and suddenly disappeared. Shiryu's expression sunk, he turned around and slashed down. Clang! The tomb spike and the long blade let out a loud sound that shook the heaven and earth. Thunder rumbled, and the air wave that was emitted seemed as though it was going to pierce through the heaven and earth. Shiryu, you have improved during these few years. Yang Yao, you have regressed during these few years. Your speed has become slower, I have noticed it. Shiryu laughed lightly. In actuality, it was very hard to determine the victor in a battle between two peak dozongs. For experts like these, one could only wait for the other party to make a mistake or have a flaw, if not it would be impossible to defeat the other party. When one reached this level of battle, what they were competing with was experience and patience, or perhaps the advantage in equipment. However, from the looks of Yang Yao and Shiryu, the difference in equipment between the two of them was not big. Although the long blade in Shiryu's hand was not an ancient godly item, it was still an ancient godly item. Furthermore, it was an ancient godly item that had been tempered 8 times. Although it was still a bit inferior, it could still be used. However, Shiryu had a good armor on his body. Thus, the two of them were evenly matched in terms of weapons and equipment, and they could only compete on the spot. As for the green mystical flame, it seemed as though it had a life of its own as it sized up everything in front of it curiously. Suddenly, it saw the Azure Dragon Empire that was not far away from it. There seemed to be the aura of its companions, and there were so many of them. The mystical flame could be seen gradually flying towards the Azure Dragon Empire. Prison Emperor. The mystical flame is moving. One of the 8 prison kings shouted out loudly. Yang Yao and Shiryu, who were fighting, immediately stopped. Shiryu did not think much and immediately ran towards the mystical flame. It seemed like she did not plan to tangle with Yang Yao and kept the mystical flame first. Despicable. Diamond drill. Yang Yao shouted angrily and directly attacked towards Shiryu's butt. Shiryu turned her head and scolded, F***K you old man, you are F*** king poking at my butt again, can you not be so perverted? In that instant when Shiryu turned her head, Yang Yao immediately increased his speed and got very close to the mystical flame. Shiryu scolded inwardly, and the blade in her hand slashed out an orange blade chi. If Yang Yao were to still stretch out his hand to grab the mystical flame, then he would not be able to keep his hand anymore. Without a choice, Yang Yao could only stop. At the same time, he scolded Shiryu for being shameless in his heart. The mystical flame looked at the 2 people at the back. I am so scared, where are my brothers and sisters, quickly come and save me, there are 2 big baddies at the back. Very quickly, the group of people arrived at the sky above the Azure Dragon Empire. Yihua raised his head and looked towards the sky, and he could see that the green mystical flame was currently running towards him with all its might, as if it was running for its life. F***K, what a weak mystical flame, I suddenly don't want it anymore. However, the mystical flame within my body seems to want this little sister very much, and it seems to be very urgent. End of this chapter. Chapter 846. Brother-in-law, they're coming, they're coming. Qin Yutong immediately became excited as she pulled onto the blanket on Yihua's leg. Qin Ye and Donghuang Baiji, on the other hand, appeared to be very calm, they didn't care about such a scene at all. Daji was the same as well, her pair of beautiful eyes locked onto the crowd in the sky. As long as they dare to descend from the sky, I will kill them. Yutong, cover yourself properly with the blanket. You are going to catch a cold. Right now, Yihua truly understood the importance of covering himself with a blanket. Qin Yutong hurriedly covered Yihua with the blanket and asked anxiously, Brother-in-law, are we still not going to make a move? Qin Ye, who was at the side, said, Yutong, you need to learn patience, don't be careless about everything. Qin Yutong's personality was probably unchangeable, but it was precisely this kind of personality that attracted Yihua. Right now, within the Azure Dragon Empire, everyone was looking at the sky with a look of doubt or hesitation on their faces. There are so many people, and they are even fighting with each other. From time to time, there would be people descending from the sky. Bringing along a large amount of blood, it made people shiver. This isn't a joke, there are really people fighting in the sky above the Azure Dragon Empire. Right now, Yang Yao and Shiryu were frantically fighting over the deviant fire, but the deviant fire was also avoiding the two's frantically fighting over it. Yang Yao. Is there something wrong with your brain? You are already so old, why do you have to choose such disgusting names for your moves? They are all called drill. Shiryu finally couldn't help but scold. Originally, the name of the move was a personal preference, but this Yang Yao's hobby was too disgusting. Yang Yao was also angry as he scolded angrily, what does the name I choose have to do with you? If I don't use drill, do I use bayonets? Can you not fucking disgust me? Azure Dragon Slash, I will hack you to death, you dirty old man. Deity Drill. From time to time, scolding sounds could be heard coming out from the sky, and there were also waves of chi whistling out from the sky. Within the crowd's fear, there was also doubt. Yihua, who do you think will be able to get the deviant fire? Donghuang Baiji asked in boredom. After watching for so long, there was still no conclusion. So boring, I want to go to sleep. Qingye yawned, she seemed to be a bit sleepy, and even Qin Yutong, who was very excited at the start, was the same. The two of them are destined not to be able to obtain it, because someone will come to snatch it. Yihua said faintly. In actuality, from the very start, Yihua had already sensed the arrival of the third wave of people. It was just that, the third wave of people was hidden in the void and did not appear. It seemed like the third wave was waiting for the third wave of people to kill each other and love each other. Hearing what Yihua said, the few women's sleepiness was completely gone, and they began observing the situation of the battle. The sky gradually darkened, and the number of people in the sky had decreased by a lot. Some of the roofs had also been smashed with holes. Gu Haoran, who was standing in the imperial palace, had an ugly expression on his face when he saw the situation. These bastards had destroyed the imperial palace. Were they going to destroy the Azure Dragon Empire that had existed for over 1,000 years? At this moment, Yang Yao and Shiryu were a little out of breath. The two of them couldn't tell who was better, so they could only use their Do Chi to fight. Yang Yao, do you have a better idea? Shiryu asked in a deep voice. Do you have a better idea? Yang Yao also wanted to end it because most of his people were dead. It was the same for the three Absolute Hall on Shiryu's side. Many of their disciples were dead. If they continued to fight like this, they would become a lone commander. I have a good idea. Suddenly, a voice rang out from the void, and two men could be seen walking out from the void. Seeing the appearance of the two men, Yang Yao and Shiryu's expression immediately darkened. Yuanyang Palace. I didn't expect that there would be people who know about Yuanyang Palace in this small Aluo river. I rather admire you. After the man finished speaking, he stretched out his hand, and a huge attractive force attacked towards the deviant flame. The green-colored deviant flame that had just been born was immediately sucked into the man's palm. The green-colored light illuminated the man's face. It was a very handsome face, but when it was illuminated by the green-colored flame, it looked very ghostly. So, this is the legendary Black Sieve Profound sect. I didn't expect that it would fall into my Yuanyang Palace, congratulations. The man roared with laughter, while the man standing behind him remained silent, appearing very steady. Even Yang Yao couldn't tell who was the leader of the two. Shiryu was also not a kind person. She pointed her sword at the man and said, "Release the deviant flame. I was the one who discovered it first." The man laughed lightly. You must be the leader of the 3 ultimate halls of the Aluo River. I've heard a lot about you. I am Feng Xiao, one of the thugs of Yuanyang Palace. I am here today to retrieve the deviant flame for you. Yang Yao was very annoyed. How did Yuanyang Palace, who was so far away, know about this? That shouldn't be possible. Could it be that he wasn't the only one who knew about this, but also the people of Yuanyang Palace? Yang Yao said in a low voice, Feng Xiao. The deviant flame appeared in the Aluo River. Yuanyang Palace is so far away. It doesn't make sense for you to interfere. You must be the prison emperor of the benevolent king prison. Although the deviant flame came from the Aluo River, it is also something from the north. All the powers can participate in the fight for it. How can you say that the Aluo River is the only one fighting for it? It doesn't make sense. Feng Xiao said with a smile, his face brimming with confidence. This confidence came from strength. Emperor Dou. Yang Yao and Shi Yu looked at each other. If they didn't fight for it now, they wouldn't have another chance in the future. Therefore, the 2 of them instantly reached a consensus. Ecstasy drill. Taishu blade technique. Yang Yao and Shi Yu didn't hold back. They immediately used their big moves and gave it their all. Feng Xiao handed the deviant flame in his hand to the man behind him and looked at the 2 of them with a smile. No matter how arrogant a Dou Zong is, he shouldn't be arrogant in front of a Dou Di. Feng Xiao's entire aura changed. The entire Azure Dragon Empire started to shake because this was the pressure from a Dou Di. The sky rumbled as if it was the end of the world. A terrifying aura swept towards the 2 of them. Just this aura alone made Yang Yao and Shi Yu feel exceptionally heavy. The moves in their hands instantly weakened. A mere force from the Aluo River dares to play big moves in front of Yuanyang Palace. Feng Xiao's face darkened. He pushed both of his hands forward and a gust of wind suddenly appeared from his palms. Yang Yao and Shi Yu's charging bodies stopped in the air. The power of their big moves instantly disappeared. The 2 of them looked at Feng Xiao with shocked eyes. Was this the strength of a Dou Di? He could defeat the 2 of them with just his aura. Do you want to lose your life to snatch the deviant flame, or obediently go back and be your boss? Feng Xiao coldly asked. Shi Yu and Yang Yao had no other choice. The opponent was too strong, so strong that they didn't dare to move. They didn't even dare to think about snatching the deviant flame. Hua Yang was currently injured. Looking at the scene in front of him, he realized that he was still so weak. End of this chapter. Chapter 847. Their palace lord was a peak Dou Zong, and that Ren King Prison's prison emperor was also a peak Dou Zong. A single Dou emperor was enough to suppress all of them. Looking at his own hall master, he saw that he was trembling as if he had just peed, as if he could not stop peeing. Seeing such a situation, all the prison kings' hearts turned cold. If the prison emperor could get his hands on the mystical flame, he would be able to break through to become a Dou emperor. At that time, would he still need to be afraid of the 2 of them? He wouldn't need to be afraid at all. He could even fight against Yuanyang Manor. Although Yuanyang Manor was second to none in the north, they still had the strength to fight against them. Yang Yao said gravely, mystical flame is a good thing, it isn't appropriate for Yuanyang Manor to take it away just like that. Oh. What else do you want? Feng Xiao asked curiously. What can you give us? Yang Yao retorted. Fighting for the greatest benefit. His benevolent king prison and the 3 absolute hall were at each other's throats. How could it be possible for Yuanyang Prefecture to take everything the moment they arrived? At the very least, they should cough up some blood. Feng Xiao laughed lightly, are you still not satisfied with giving me your life?" Hearing this, Shi Yu and Yang Yao's face darkened. This is a blatant threat. Shameless, shameless thing, go to hell after you die, trash. Just when the two were talking, the mystical flame suddenly ran away. The man standing behind Feng Xiu's face tightened, and he pulled at the direction where the mystical flame ran away. The huge pull made the mystical flame a lot slower, but it still ran away desperately. The green flame didn't seem to be that bright anymore. Seeing such a situation, Yang Yao and Shi Yu clapped their hands in their hearts. After all, if we can't get it, others can't either. Feng Xiu's face darkened, and he pulled the mystical flame along with the man behind him. Right at this moment, the mystical flame let out a powerful green light, causing people to cover their eyes. In just an instant, the mystical flame flew towards the Azure Dragon Empire. Chase! The man who didn't speak all this while shouted and took the lead to chase. Feng Xiu took a glance at the two and chased after them. Although Feng Xiu introduced himself as Yuan Yang Manor's hired thug, it wasn't that simple. These two people were Yuan Yang Manor's left and right law protectors. For such a big matter, the palace master naturally had to use the best people. Yihua looked at the deviant flames that were rushing towards him, and the corner of his mouth unconsciously revealed an arc. My entire body feels much better, and those deviant flames within my body are no longer restless. Along with Yihua stretching out his palm, the green-colored deviant flame fell onto Yihua's palm. The deviant flame was as quiet as a kitten, and it was even intimately stroking Yihua's palm. Meanwhile, Qingye and the others were also looking at the deviant flame curiously. They didn't have much feelings towards the deviant flame. After all, it was something that children shouldn't play with. In the eyes of others, this deviant flame might be a super treasure, but in the eyes of these mothers, it was just a child's toy. There was no other explanation. Yihua, this deviant flame seems to be very weak. Qingye looked at the deviant flame in Yihua's hand and said, "It's just a newborn. It'll be fine after a while." Yihua said faintly. "Although it is a bit weak, in any case, it is still a deviant flame. As for what abilities this deviant flame has, I will slowly uncover it in the future." Now, there was one thing to solve, and that was the two people who had fallen behind. At this moment, Feng Xiu and Xia Yang landed together. They looked at Yihua, who was sitting in the wheelchair, and the deviant flame in his hand. However, they neglected the four beautiful women beside Yihua. However, there were a few people floating above one residence. Yang Yao and Shi Yu didn't leave in a hurry as they looked at the situation below. Who is this man? Why did the deviant flame end up in his hand? Feng Xiu and Xia Yang had this question in their hearts as well. Who are you? How dare you spoil the matters of my Yuanyang residence? Right now, Feng Xiu's mood was very bad. Originally, his plan was going smoothly, and he would be able to directly report back to Yuanyang residence later on. Yihua raised his right hand, and the green deviant flame disappeared. Evidently, he had already kept the deviant flame. This also represented a possibility. The deviant flame recognized a master. Yang Yao and Shi Yu looked at the scene dumbfoundedly. Is it that easy for a deviant flame to recognize a master? Isn't it very troublesome for a deviant flame to recognize a master? Furthermore, it might even be very dangerous. Those are all farts, we can only see it with our own eyes. Right now, it can only be said that this man is very arrogant. He actually took something from Yuanyang residence and kept the deviant flame without saying anything. I reckon that the people from Yuanyang residence are going to explode in anger. The two people from Yuanyang residence were indeed on the verge of exploding in anger, and the veins on their foreheads were already popping out. This man actually subdued the deviant flame. How is this possible? Even the residence master said that subduing a deviant flame would take a very long time, but this man actually subdued the deviant flame in an instant. Their entire brain was unable to understand what was going on. Also, those women who were standing at the side. Feng Xiao and Xia Yang finally noticed those women, and the first thing that they felt was that they were stunned. It was as if they had forgotten that they should be angry because their deviant flame was snatched away. However, this kind of shock was only for an instant. After all, the two of them were Do Di, and their mental state was very good. It was not that easy for them to be bewitched. At this moment, Yihua said faintly, "This is the first time that I have heard of Yuanyang residence." "Qinya, have you heard of it before?" "Never heard of it before. It might be some small sect," Qinya said with a joyful tone. Especially the word small sect, it made Feng Xiao and Xia Yang quite angry. "A bunch of nonsense," Feng Xiao shouted out angrily. He was not a kind person, to actually say that Yuanyang residence was a small sect. Unforgivable. All of you are a bunch of unruly people. Feng Xiao waved his hand, and a blade that was formed by astral wind rushed towards Qinya. The blade carried the aura of a Do Di. Wherever the blade passed by, a dent appeared, and the Garden of Wan mansion was immediately destroyed. The people flying in the air couldn't bear to see this scene. A super great beauty was about to die. Sure, you couldn't bear it in his heart. He felt that Feng Xiao was too shameless, actually taking action against a woman. Clang clang clang. The blades formed by the astral winds all collided with Qinya's body, as if they were blocked by an invisible barrier. Qinya was completely unscathed, and the faint smile on her face didn't even move a bit. The atmosphere suddenly changed and became quiet. What was he most afraid of? Silence. This was especially the case for Feng Xiao. He felt that this was impossible. Although this wind blade was not very powerful, it still originated from the hands of a Do Di. Even a person at the peak of the Do Zone class would not dare to randomly receive it. Yet, this woman actually possessed such a powerful magic weapon. Blocking his wind blade. Yihua didn't plan to let these two people go. To actually dare to make a move on my woman, could it be that the two of you don't know? You can't afford to offend my woman. The two of you, go to the side and drink some tea. Yihua said faintly. Some things should be done by me. Qinya didn't say anything. With outsiders around, I definitely have to listen to my husband, if not, I would be losing my husband's face. After Qinya, Qin Yutong, and Dong Huang Baiji entered the pavilion, Daji asked respectfully, Master, do you need me to kill them? End of this chapter. Chapter 848. Daji, go and make some tea. Yihua said faintly. Daji was slightly startled. I wanted to do something for Master, but Master didn't allow me to do it. Let's go somewhere else. Yihua said faintly. Feng Xiao and Xia Yang nodded. After all, if such a battle were to start, a large number of Azure Dragon Empire's commoners would die. If it was the past Yihua, he wouldn't have said such a thing. The more people die, the better. However, the current Yihua still took this into consideration. Therefore, he chose to change the location and teach them a lesson. You guys are indeed very powerful. In front of Benevolent King Prison and 3 Absolute Palace, you guys can do whatever you want, but in front of me, even the Emperor has to kneel, let alone you small fries. The group of people changed the location, and Qingya directly brought the pavilion with her. When her husband went out to fight, as the wife, she would definitely cheer him on the side. Seeing that the group of people left, Gu Haoran heaved a sigh of relief. He was afraid that they would destroy the Azure Dragon Empire, and if that happened, he would become the second emperor to die from anger. At a small stall on the street of the Azure Dragon Empire, a man smiled as he watched the group of people leave. It seemed like everything was under his control. Yi Hua, who was sitting on the wheelchair, had already recovered. He looked refreshed as if he had just taken a bath. The deviant fire in his body had all calmed down. As for the green deviant fire that was growing rapidly, I'm really curious. Although Yi Hua had recovered, he didn't plan to stand up. He didn't want to give them a blow. Who are you? Hand over the deviant fire. I can still spare your life. Feng Xiu shouted at Yi Hua. Xia Yang, who was at the side, also had a black face. If I don't do this well, it will be a shame. Two emperor doers went to snatch something, and they didn't even get it. Isn't that embarrassing? Master, the tea is ready. Daji obediently brought over a cup of tea. Yi Hua took it and took a sip. Daji, your culinary skills are getting better and better. Thank you for your compliment, master. Hearing her master's praise, Daji was satisfied and continued to make tea. Facing Yi Hua's disregard, Feng Xiu became angry, arrogant child. Watch my arrow. In his rage, Feng Xiu condensed a white feather bow in his left hand. There were no arrows, but he could use his battle chi to form arrows. Boundless battle chi formed in Feng Xiu's right hand, and a golden arrow slowly formed. With a terrifying pressure, the entire world began to whistle, and the clouds in the sky began to reverse. All of this was because of this golden arrow. Yang Yao and Shiyu, who were watching from the sky, inhaled a breath of cool air. Was this the strength of a Dodi? So strong. Just condensing this feather arrow had caused such a huge commotion, and that bow didn't look like an ordinary item either. Fortunately, he did not become enemies with the two of them just now. Otherwise, he would definitely be dead. Facing the might of a Dodi, all of the people who were watching the battle exclaimed in admiration. However, to Yi Hua, these people were still salted fish, and there was no difference between them. He slowly sipped his tea and looked at the other party. When it came to archery, Brett was also an expert. I wonder when Absolute Heaven will be able to recover. This time, when I return, I'll have to assign some tasks to them. I can't let them stay idle. I, the Supreme Overlord, promised them that I would let them go on a killing spree after coming here. Looking at Yi Hua's indifferent look, Feng Xiu felt that his dignity was being trampled on. I, Dodi, am releasing my attack, and yet, Yi Hua is actually still drinking tea and thinking about other things. Go and die. You trash. Great destruction. Feng Xiu's arrow wasn't shot towards Yi Hua, it was shot towards the sky. After the arrow left the bowstring, an enormous amount of battle chi erupted, and the entire world seemed to have quietened down. A golden arrow flew into the black clouds, and one could faintly see that the clouds were flickering with a golden light. Bang! A loud sound rang out from the clouds, and all of the people who were watching the battle covered their ears. Those who were weaker even started to bleed. Yi Hua sipped his tea, looked at the clouds silently, and let out a breath. Suddenly, the golden light in the sky disappeared, and a pitch-black arrow descended towards Yi Hua. Everyone immediately revealed a shocked expression. Why did the golden arrow turn black? Furthermore, the might of the arrow seems to have become even more valiant. Look at the battle chi that is being emitted from the arrow, it seems like the arrow is going to pierce through the ground. The arrow that was descending from the sky had already pierced through the air, forming an arc-shaped airwave, and the entire ground was shaking. As long as this arrow lands, a huge crater would be formed, and the size of the crater should be as big as the Azure Dragon Empire. However, Yi Huamin continued drinking his tea while looking at the descending arrow. Big sister, how do you think brother-in-law is going to act cool? Qing Yutong hurriedly asked. She wasn't the slightest bit worried about what Yi Hua was going to do. After all, these two people were much weaker than the two people who suddenly appeared in the palace that day. Qingye pursed her lips. Based on my understanding of Yi Hua, he likes to snap his fingers and act cool. The possibility of that is very high. Donghuang Baizhi agreed. In the past, Yi Hua liked to snap his fingers the most, and he would snap his fingers whenever he didn't agree with something. Because of that, Donghuang Baizhi and Qingye also liked to snap their fingers. Qing Yutong laughed. I feel that brother-in-law will grab hold of the arrow. Right after Qing Yutong finished speaking, a terrifying cyclone immediately spread out. Because the arrow had already landed. Dust filled the sky, and Feng Xiu revealed out a confident smile. With such an arrow, not even a single strand of hair will be left behind. To actually dare to go against me, Feng Xiu, you are simply courting death. And to even dare to covet the mysterious fire, you are truly overestimating yourself. Is the mysterious fire something that you should be taking? Yang Yao, who was standing in the sky, said, this person from Yuanyang Palace is indeed formidable. That's right, I am completely unable to take on this arrow. I reckon that when the arrow lands, I will be crushed into minced meat by that enormous Duki. Sure, you said gravely. Even though they were very far away from each other, they were still able to feel that terrifying might, let alone that man who was sitting in a wheelchair, he would have to endure all of that might. Seizing the mysterious fire sure is dangerous. Yang Yao couldn't help but sigh. And this is only the people from Yuanyang Palace who are participating in this. If the people from the north and the people from the south are added in, then, they would definitely have to fight to the death. Gradually, when the dust dispersed, Qing Yutong cried out in surprise, didn't I say so? Brother-in-law should act cool like this. The corner of Qingye and Donghuang Baizhi's mouth twitched. We really guessed it right. Right now, Yi Hua was grabbing onto the arrow with his right hand, and the arrowhead was still very far away from Yi Hua's forehead. Looking at Yi Hua's action, the entire place became silent. Yang Yao and Shi Yu's mind was buzzing. How is this possible? This man actually grabbed onto an arrow with his bare hands, and it is even an arrow that was shot out by a Do Di. Is he a Do Zun? He is even an overlord. It is impossible for something like this to happen. However, Feng Xiu and Xia Yang were shocked as well, and their entire bodies became stiff. This cripple who is sitting in a wheelchair, is he even a human? End of this chapter. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.